This is day 4 in the Airthings Masters, and we've seen some fantastic chess.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kaya. Happy birthday to you. Magnus really looking happy with himself.
The king can't move. Wait. This move is breaking the rules.
Whoa, everything under control, but suddenly the position has changed. This just looks glorious for white.
Big choice from Arjun Erigaisi.
There we go. The avalanche continues.
There's a big threat on the board.
He's taking
Whoa,
it.
Magnus Carlsen is furious.
He's going straight for the kill. Wesley So has blundered. He's blundered his knight. White king is trapped. This is checkmate blundered.
Magnus Carlsen showing his genius. I'm so excited to spend my birthday here together with you guys, our excellent chess experts in the studio, Grandmaster David Howell, International Master Tanya Sachdev, and Grandmaster Robert Hess. And Robert, yesterday, what a day, especially winners final with Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. What did you take away from that?
It was epic, and it was mind game. Some tricks by Magnus Carlsen. He seemed to be in Hikaru Nakamura's head, that bid 1 second apart. That was fantastic.
Yeah. And today, Tanya, it's all about getting that second spot in tomorrow's grand final to meet Magnus Carlsen. Who do you think will take that final spot?
It is going to be a tough match for both these players. Now, Wesley against Arjun is what we start with. Of course, on paper, it's easy to say that Wesley is a favorite, but do not underestimate Arjun. He has shown that on a good day, he can beat the very best players. He has been in form, the only one so far in this event to have beaten Magnus Carlsen. And I think he has played phenomenally well so far. He needs to come in again with that same precision. Try and get Wesley in messy situations, create a chaos on the board, because if it's a strategic positional fight, can't imagine a player like Wesley going down in that. So Arjun needs to do what he does best and take it up a notch.
Wow. Oh, that's going to be interesting. And yesterday, David, we had a lot of fun as well. Are you getting a lot of messages about Pokemon?
That's all I'm getting. The inbox was full this morning, Kaya. But yeah, go Team Pikachu.
Yeah, that's your favorite?
Snorlax.
Well, Magnus Carlsen, he has a day off today, actually, because he's already ready for the grand final. And Magnus, he's in Canada visiting the chess brass. He did post a picture on Instagram, simply doing what I enjoy and enjoying myself. And Tanya, do you think this is just what Magnus likes the most in the sports pub? Playing chess, being with friends.
He loves it, having a good time, playing chess. That is life goals. And Magnus having a good time there. And that's when he plays his best chess as well.
Yeah. Is that showing, David, that Magnus is actually really enjoying himself now?
It really is. He's not necessarily hitting his highest levels, but he's doing enough. And you can see on the board, he's very relaxed. He's not putting too much pressure on himself. And especially in these long online tournaments where it's a real grind, it's a real psychological battle, not just with your opponents, but also with yourself. Yeah, he's somehow getting the results he needs.
He definitely is. And today it's all about getting that final spot in tomorrow's grand final. Yesterday we had some epic battles. One of them was between the two young Indians, Arjun Erigaisi and Gukesh.
This is his final shot.
Yeah,
it's now or never.
He's just played king to f1, forgetting that castling is legal in chess. I think his idea is to keep the rook on the h-file to attack.
He's just telling Arjun, you are not castling, and if you do, I am going to attack your king.
Wow, he doesn't choose any of those options. He retreats his knight to the center of the board.
What is this move? Bishop takes rook?
It's brilliant.
Queen takes bishop? It's brilliant.
It's over. Gukesh is knocked out of the tournament. Arjun Erigaisi makes it through. Oh, there we go. It started. This is the winner's final.
He goes for the more ambitious approach. Wow, that is making intentions very clear. Shots fired.
Very surprised, I've got to say, that Hikaru looks so poker-faced on the camera, because I would be terrified here for black. How do you get that white pawn? It must be so frustrating. Hikaru knows he's about to make a draw, and finally we see it.
Wow. Here we go.
Look at Magnus. He quickly responds with knight f6, challenging that rook on its place, and now that rook is really oddly placed. Are we going to see a repetition again?
Oh my God.
Are we going to see bishop b3, queen f5, bishop c2?
It is happening.
We are heading to Armageddon.
We are
for sure.
heading.
Oh, yay.
We've got liftoff. Suck that h5 pawn, and that's a big blunder.
Yes, because there's a tactic. Knight takes pawn on e5. That is a game changer.
Oh, he doesn't find it. He moves his knight away. Look at the evaluation bar dropping down in black's favor. Those are two runners. And Hikaru, is he going to try and flag Magnus? The answer is no. It's a draw.
Hikaru is actually the one who offered the draw. That's the ultimate sign of respect. That is a good show of sportsmanship.
Magnus Carlsen wins the winner finals with a draw. A smile on Magnus Carlsen's face, and also in the studio to guide us through this day four in the Airthings Masters is international master Jovanka Hauska. And he did seem happy yesterday winning that match against Hikaru, but Magnus actually said in an interview that he wasn't too happy with the way they both played the winner's final.
I mean, he basically said that, you know, he struggled actually at finding a few resources. You know, he even said that there was a resource that he should never have missed in a million years. And he actually said that the best move in that match was actually predicting the time for the Armageddon. He's kind of called it a soul read. And of course, Magnus bidding 8 minutes 58, Hikaru bidding 8 minutes 59. So a big battle to get the black pieces in Armageddon. And well, Hikaru definitely, he will have to wait because he has to meet today's victor over Wesley So and Arjun Erigaisi.
Yep. Hikaru Nakamura is playing later today. We also had a losers bracket yesterday, and we can take a look at the results on the losers bracket. The first, it was losers quarterfinals. Arjun Erigaisi knocked out Gukesh. That was an intense battle. They played some fantastic games, these two youngsters.
Yeah, and I really like the way that Arjun Erigaisi actually approached that. You know, he came very well prepared, and he decided just to take it into some kind of messy position where Gukesh just couldn't navigate the complications. So he looked very strong, and Wesley So just looked powerful. I mean, he's been unbeaten in this tournament. He was also unbeaten when he won the title Tuesdays twice. Actually, something that only Hikaru Nakamura has done.
Wow.
And yeah, I have to say, Wesley looking very impressive. And I agree with what Tanya said earlier. Arjun really has to follow in his role model's footsteps, that's Garry Kasparov, and try to mix it up, come with some fighting spirit and aggression.
Yeah. Magnus Carlsen has actually lost a game in the Airthings Masters to Arjun Erigaisi. He is ready for the grand final. Hikaru and Wesley playing now on the losers bracket. They haven't lost a game yet.
No, they haven't lost a game. It seems a bit unfair, actually. But such are the rules of Armageddon chess, and where a draw is insufficient if you're playing with the white pieces.
Yeah. We are following Division 1 today, but there is also Division 2 and Division 3 going on in the Airthings Masters. And these are today's games coming up in Division 2. There's a winner's final with two fantastic players. Fabiano Caruana is fighting today. What do you expect from the winner's final here, Ivanka?
This is going to be a very interesting battle because actually traditionally Fabi hasn't actually been very good at speed chess, but he has been working on that in recent years. And then we have Yu Yang Yi, who has a very creative style. And actually, if you were to look at their head-to-heads, it's actually Yu Yang Yi who has the better of him, of Fabiano.
And we also notice another big name in Division 2 still in there fighting, former world champion Vladimir Kramnik. Incredible.
I know. I mean, he's like my personal favorite. You know, it's so great to have a former world champion fighting, and as also someone who is slightly older than their counterparts. You know, it really is great to have such a role model playing and doing so well. But, you know, he does have a tough path ahead of him. This is not the final step. He has 3 matches to go. He has to win 3 in order to get to the grand final. That's a big ask.
Yeah. But Division 3 will be decided today, actually. The grand final is coming up today, and it is between these two. Sam Sevion against Pragnananda. What do you expect, Ivanka?
It will actually feel like Groundhog Day for these two because they actually played each other in the winner's bracket. And it was Sam Sevion who won in this 100-move Armageddon.
Whoa.
It was that close. And of course, he knocked down Pragnananda down. It kind of felt like a game of snakes and ladders there. And Prag had to work his way back up there. And it's going to be tense. It's going to be very, very close. Sam Sevion starts off with the white pieces, and that's very critical in these 2 match encounters.
Yeah. Let's take a look at what they are fighting for. This is the prize fund in the Airthings Masters, a total of $235,000 in all 3 divisions. And remember, the winner of Division 2 not only gets $10,000 and 50 tour points, the winner also qualifies for the next First Division event in the Champions Chess Tour. And we're going to follow from the start here. Division 1, it's going to be the losers semi-final coming up. Wesley So is fighting to go all the way to the losers final to meet Hikaru Nakamura. And Wesley So, he has some big goals coming up in 2023.
Your top 3 goals that you hope to achieve in 2023.
Let's see, the first one would be to qualify to the candidates. I've only played in the candidates once, and it didn't go very well in 2018. So I'm very excited to see what 2023 holds. There'll still be some over-the-board tournaments here and there, but almost half of the tournaments are held online, and they're very important. They got a lot of stake. I'm very pleased to win last year's the Global Chess Tournament. I'm excited to be part of the new Champions Chess Tour and chess.com. It's interesting to see what this new partnership will hold for them. Win some big online tournaments. That would be very nice. For me as a player, I'm trying to balance myself between being very good at classical while also doing not bad at online and speed chess, because they're very different things. And so this year is going to be exciting as well as a challenge. And my calendar is actually getting very full at the moment. I also need time to spend between resting, recovering, and also preparing. And number 3 would be too ambitious, but I'd say reach the top 3 in the world.
Some impressive goals for Wesley So, but his very first goal right now is to reach the losers final to face Hikaru Nakamura. He's up against Arjun, Erigaisi, and the player that wins this match between Wesley and Arjun, the player that reaches the losers final, is actually guaranteed a spot in the next first division event in the Airthings Masters. Do you think that's something that is maybe especially for Wesley in the back of his head heading into this match?
Yeah, I think for Wesley So, he was given an automatic entry into this one. He wants to earn himself a chance once more, and he sees this as an opportunity to face off against Hikaru Nakamura. He wants that rematch. I think Wesley, he's trying to earn his place in that grand final.
Yeah. Who do you hold as a favorite in this match, David?
Well, I'm going to have to go with experience. I'm going to have to say Wesley So, even though I am Arjun's biggest fan, as I said yesterday. Not many people have crushed me like Arjun Erigaisi has crushed me. I think it's going to be very close. There's a lot at stake, that first division spot for the next tournament. But whoever wins is going to have to run the gauntlet anyway. Imagine facing Hikaru next, then having to face Magnus in the final, and having to beat Magnus twice. Whoever gets there, what a Herculean task.
Yeah. It's best out of 2 games in the losers semi-final. If they are tied after those 2 games, then it will go to Armageddon. And Wesley and Arjun, they're sitting basically on opposite sides of the world. It's quite early in the morning for Wesley So in Minnesota. Arjun late at night playing in India. And what will it take for Arjun today, Tanya, to beat Wesley and make it to the losers final?
He has to have a lot of energy for today's match. Now, Wesley is perhaps the hardest player on the circuit to beat. He is super duper solid, and I'm a big fan of Wesley. I mean, how can you not be? The guy is just probably one of the kindest chess players, and on the beast, he's just, on the board, he's an absolute beast. Yeah. He just doesn't lose any games. Again, what I said earlier, Kaya, it's really important for Arjun to stick to his style today. He needs to get those dynamic positions, the kind which is just filled with landmines. You know, everyone and anyone can go wrong, and that's why he has his best chance against Wesley. He needs to believe that he can beat him. They played together at the Tata Steel Chess India, Rapid and Blitz, and in fact, Arjun with the white pieces did get a win against Wesley in the Blitz section, and the other 2 games were a draw. So in speed chess, I think he does have that confidence that he can do it. That said, it's so hard to bet against someone like Wesley.
Yeah, definitely. 10 years separate these 2 players. Wesley So playing for the US and Arjun Erigaisi playing for India, ranked at number 8 and 38 in the world in classical chess. And Wesley, we call him so solid all the time, Robert. Arjun, we've seen him sacrifice pieces. Is there just 2 very different styles up against each other here?
Completely different styles clashing today, because Wesley So, in the last classical event, he says he wants to focus on his classical chess. Yeah. He had 2 wins and 9 draws. Arjun Erigaisi played more fighting chess throughout the Tata Steel Masters. He ended up with 5 losses and no wins to his name. It was a bad event. He could put that in the past. But Arjun, he's typically very combative. Wesley, he wants to keep things nice and steady.
Okay. And he starts off with the white pieces. Wesley So, best out of 2 rapid games. If they are tied, it will be decided in Armageddon. The time control is 15 minutes plus 3 seconds increment. And we have started.
We have liftoff. It's a King's Pawn opening. Wesley has gone for the Italian game several times already this tournament, including twice against Hikaru Nakamura. Didn't lead him anywhere. We've got to say he's also dabbled with the Spanish. Which opening will he choose? Slightly odd to see him pause there, but just finding his bearings, and there we go. It's the Spanish. Maybe not predicting e5 from Arjun today. Arjun does play every opening imaginable. Solid start to this one.
Yeah, Wesley's gone for the Spanish, and of course, Arjun was prepared for this. I really want to add that I think it is an advantage to Wesley to start with the white pieces. With 2 games. And the reason for that is, of course, because he has the higher seeding in the tournament. But in a 2-game match, imagine starting with the white pieces. If you're able to create your chances and get that win, Arjun just has 1 more game to strike back, and he plays with black that too. So that is a really difficult spot to be in. Arjun needs to make sure that things don't go too wrong in this one. He has to neutralize that edge because a player like Wesley, you give him 1 opportunity. You know, he doesn't maybe go for the most dynamic options on the board, but he's that player who makes the most of a mistake that the opponent does. So if Arjun slips even slightly today, Wesley will grab it with both hands and not give Arjun a chance. This is a super important game because I think for Arjun, starting with black, he has to be really careful in this one.
And it's just really, really focused the whole day. He cannot let his mind go anywhere.
Absolutely, Kaya. But we look at Arjun on the camera, and it almost appears as if he's just gotten out of bed. He's got that classic I don't care Arjun pose going on.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, that is just deceptive. The guy is super focused right now. He knows that he needs to get this job done to play that match against Hikaru, and he knows he's up against one of the finest in the world.
They kind of look the same, the way they're sitting, right? Is this a very typical chess player pose? Just leaning.
Supporting the big brains
Yeah,
that they
exactly.
both have. And just before the game, we saw Arjun checking the air quality, maybe checking the aircon. But I want to praise his hair quality in this game. like Tanya said, just got out of bed look, just looking really chilled out. And that has brought him luck so far. But meanwhile, it's a variation we call the anti-martial, where White doesn't allow a gambit that we saw yesterday between Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen. And instead, a set of bishops are off the board. Black does have a set of double pawns in the centre on the e-file, but other than that, everything else looks balanced, Robert.
And I always like to say when there are double pawns, it means they're open files. And that rook, the castled rook, it is open along the f-file. That could spell some trouble for the white king at some point. But right now, Wesley is keeping the position locked up. 0 pawns have been traded. It's becoming a strategic battle in the early stages. What White really would like to do is trade those queens. If you could pluck them off the board, we get into a queenless middle game where White's pawn structure nice and healthy and Black's pawn structure a little bit compromised. So it's a long battle that we're about to see take fold.
Yeah, a long battle, and we will see these slightly mysterious maneuvers, such as Arjun's last move, just shuffling that rook across, maybe hinting that that rook will jump down the board later on to go for White's lone A-pawn. That A-pawn is an intruder in the black camp and could be a real weakness later. But first, Wesley breaks in the centre. He's not happy to just sit around and wait. He asks questions of Arjun's centre, that massive black pawns there, and after Black just reacts, defending, holding everything together, he does develop his queen. So a clear threat on the board for the first time, really, in this game. White's queen is eyeing up a target, that black A-pawn. So on the diagonal, a threat. How does Arjun parry this one?
Well, as you're pointing out, one of the ideas that Black has is to step up with the rook all the way to b5, and that's the point of getting the rook to this seemingly blocked file. You really want to target that weakness on a5, which has shifted so far away from the friendly b pawn on b2. Now, that's one way that you can defend a6 and put pressure. The other idea that Black has in these kind of positions, David, is with the last knight move, the retreating knight move. It might look passive, but it's only retreated to go forward eventually. You can already gobble up on d4, which I see is what Arjun's gone for. And after all the trades in the center, that knight on d7 will in fact jump up on the board over to c5, got that a6 pawn, and put pressure on the e4 pawn. I like how Arjun's handled the opening so far.
Yeah. Again, a prophet. Both of you in this tournament, you're predicting the future really, really well. This has happened, and Arjun does have a very nice knight here, holding everything together. Wesley, meanwhile, needs to get these pieces to start working. And Black has more central pawns.
There's one tactical note, and the reason why Arjun played this line is that Wesley, his last move was knight takes pawn on d4. He had the option of taking the a6 pawn if we just go back a turn here, but that would have allowed a potentially devastating exchange sacrifice. Rook takes knight on f3, exposing the white king. There are not many defenders on that flank, so for that outside pass pawn that White has on a5, that looks great. The king is in some serious danger, the queen and the knight ready to hop in and attack the white king, and this is not Wesley So style. He wants things to be safe for his king rather than playing this double-edged game.
Yeah, so he definitely took the safety-first approach there, and we expect him to continue doing that. But it's not necessarily obvious what White should be doing now. One move, for example, would be just solidifying this pawn chain, just keeping everything nice and controlled. Next move, bringing the bishop out. But it's nothing to worry about for Arjun. It's nothing to be scared of. It just feels like a very balanced position. And I do love the flexibility of Black's bishop, for example, about to appear on the long diagonal. Black's queen can choose to go on either side of the board, maybe towards that white king later on. It's, balanced position, early days.
These kind of middle games are so much to do with pawn structures, and that's where really the whole focus is on, and it's mostly on the queen side. There are two weaknesses for each of these players. For White, it's that pawn on a5, which might look like an aggressive pawn, but actually it can often come under pressure. The other one, of course, the one right below it, the a6 pawn, which was under fire, and we see both players know that, well, Arjun kind of got out of the opening, neutralizing White's edge, and looks pretty calm so far. Wesley there, shifting a little bit. David, what's your chess pose?
Yeah.
What would be your chess pose?
My chess pose, Tanya. Oh, I don't know, just... Not really. It's more like these two, just head in hands, hiding from the world.
I feel like we can pull up that chess pose, you know, of the producers back there. A certain photo that's been happening with a gold medal around his neck and a shirt off his body. So I feel like that's your ultimate chess pose.
That's true, Robert. You caught me out on that one. I wonder if it's allowed to turn up like that to a chessboard. Will I get kicked out? Not that I'm going to try it. But,
Well, there was a lot of talk about dress code in the Rapid and Blitz World Championship, right? Magnus, was it, that showed up in not, I guess they call it appropriate clothing because it wasn't like shirt or suit. What was the problem there?
I think he was wearing a Puma hoodie there, and it was the day that he showed up really late for his game and came running. I think it was a blitz game. You got 3 minutes on the clock. The guy just runs in with 30 seconds left, 2.5 minutes late. FIDE does have a very strict dress code for their official championships. They do tend to give out warnings first before they take serious action. But then, just seeing Magnus run with his hoodie on and then go on to win in just 30 seconds, that was insane.
So you tell me he's running, he's wearing Puma gear, and he's winning a game with minimal time. So that sounds like a hashtag ad, and maybe that's why he got the warning. You know, they kind of hit you on the wrist for that one.
I bet Puma was very happy about that. I also remember from Fisher Random World Championship, Janne Pomniachtchi got told off also for dressing appropriately, I think is what they said.
they're such rebels, these chess players. They're all doing it for the memes, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's what's so nice about online chess as well. They can basically wear whatever they want. So the question from David is, can they be shirtless?
It's a semi-serious question. I don't want FIDE writing into me, giving me a warning already. I'm not going to do it. I'm not actually going to do it.
But how cool would it be? Okay, so let's say you're wearing your shirt, but you turn up to your next over-the-board event just wearing your gold medal. How cool would that be?
Got to cut down those carbs, clearly. Anyway, Wesley So's in the tank. He's been thinking for around 3-4 minutes now. A long time. And Tanya, I wanted to ask you actually the previous days, but now feels like the perfect moment. Arjun Erigaisi, this massive sponsorship deal, record-breaking, I believe.
Oh.
How much do you think it's going to help him?
A lot. I think this is exactly what's required to step it up and go to the next level. Of course, all these youngsters, their ultimate dream is to fight for the World Championship match. And we've seen with Arjun, he's had such a breakout performance over the last 2 years. A meteoric rise, really, just came out with a boom out of the pandemic and, crossing 2,700, being one of the top rapid players in the world. Just some star-studded tournaments he played and really marked his own over there, established himself with the elite. And then it is about being super strong to really taking it up that notch. And for that, you need that financial support. And I think that money is going to be put into some good use, some good training. I know they've mixed it up with the trainers and sort of Arjun's getting help from some of the best in the world now with that. So it's going to go a long way in his dream of becoming a world champion one day.
Yeah, I believe it was around $1.5 million.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And it was a Singaporean company. I'm half Singaporean, Where's the money? Give me the money. But,
it's with Arjun.
Yeah, it's with Arjun. And he deserves it. He's been so great. And do you think this could be the start of a new trend for younger players? Each having their individual sponsors?
I actually think the Champions Chess Tours played a huge role in that. I mean, we saw the entire explosion happen with that Prague big win. I think it was in the Airthings Masters.
Yeah, it was.
The first time in 2022 February it was probably.
It's basically 1 year ago.
Exactly
right?
a year ago. And chess exploded in India. We had our Prime Minister tweeting about it. We had Sachin Tendulkar tweeting about it.
I remember that, yeah.
And that's when it got into this big mainstream news. And of course, with their performances backed by that, because that's really where it's at. People have been taking notice of these young talents. And the support has been coming in. And I think that's what's required in our sport to make that next jump for this new wave, this wave of these teenagers to really shake up the elite in the world.
Absolutely. That you can actually make a living of chess from an early age.
Absolutely. And I think this money, the sponsorship money, it just goes into your training. and to step up to that very next level. Because this jump from 2,700 to fighting for the World Championship is way bigger than it seems. And I think it's the hardest one to make.
Yeah, it gets incrementally harder, right? The higher you go up the rating ladder, the harder it is to make those gains. And yeah, we've seen plenty of people try to challenge Magnus, but not quite kind of stay at that 2,800 level consistently like he can.
And even in India, we've had Vishy Anand, but we haven't had another Vishy Anand since him. So much talent, so many youngsters, and I think this is the generation that's going to change that.
Yeah, we know chess is booming in India. What would you say is the state of chess in the US, Robert?
It's kind of a complicated question because the U.S. has been criticized in recent years for bringing in talent from around the globe. Levana Ronin is now playing for the U.S. Federation, and in recent years, Wesley So is one of the players. And, of course, we welcome them with open arms. But at the younger levels, it's kind of the grassroots levels, chess is booming in the U.S.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Many more people are playing the game. I think people too often focus on the top players and don't see everyone that's working up. The youngest Grandmaster in chess history, Abhimanyu Mishra from the United States. Christopher Yu, who, like Gukesh, has composed puzzles and is a strong Grandmaster in his teenage years from the United States. So we are seeing many strong talents, including Sam Sevian, who is in the third division grand final right now. So there is a lot going for the U.S., but I think people like to compare it to the top of the world and Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura. Like, where's that next player coming from? It's really, really difficult to get there.
Yeah. Abhimanyu Mishra must be a name that, could be a potential next world champion at some point.
When you're the youngest grandmaster in chess history, I think there's a lot of pressure on you. And, of course, there are others as well, like Tani. I mean, his story is very famous in a book, and I believe it's going to be made into a movie. So there's so many talented players around the globe, and we're just treated to see them play.
Yeah, we had Tani on the show last year. What a cool guy. Definitely a big chess talent. Now, in this one, bunch of moves on the board. What's happening?
Yeah, a bunch of trades. We did see a couple of minor pieces leave the board. The pawn structure is almost the same as it was when we last talked about the game, but Black has fixed things in the center, locked things down. And it's this bishop versus knight scenario. And, of course, we were talking in previous days about it being a matter of style, being a matter of taste. But with this pawn structure, it definitely feels like the knight holds its own against the bishop. White does have the opportunity to try and trade off later on, capture that black knight, but that doesn't lead to any advantage. With the extra central pawns for Black, with the extra central control, it definitely feels like the more pieces come off the board, the happier Arjun will be right now. And big decision. I don't think you should rush to trade queens, we should mention here, Robert. But what else could Arjun be thinking about?
I just think it was a brilliant last move from Wesley So, because so many people would say, I can't allow you to take my queen and double isolate my pawns. But if Black does grab the queen right now, it would be a huge mistake. Because pawn structure, Daniel Naroditsky, let's say, it's overrated. People look at the aesthetics. After the capture, the rook is forced back. And then White can, in fact, take this knight on c5 once the rook retreats, because the open d file is so important, in particular the d5 square. That rook hits two pawns at the same time. There's no way for Black to defend them. White's just going to go pawn grabbing. It's going to be happy pickings for Wesley So. There's no way Arjun Erigaisi is trading queens, despite how bad the white pawn structure would look.
Yep, it would look terrible, but you win a pawn in the process at the very minimum. So Arjun here, he will for sure be looking in a different direction. Does he just maintain the status quo? I guess you can move this rook. I'm not sure where you want to place it. This knight, at some point, you can just retreat it back to a safe square. This rook is a bit stuck. I loved this piece just a few moves ago, but suddenly now it's tied down as a defensive piece, holding and protecting its own knight. It's never really going to be able to gobble up this pawn, which is well defended by White's rook. So this rook does look like a clumsy piece. Normally rooks, you want them shifting across the board on open lines. Here it's just very locked in. So I don't like that piece at all for Arjun. But the rest of his position, very solid. I don't see any specific threats for White. If Black just takes a timeout, just as an example, pushes a pawn, I don't see what Wesley's doing next. Maybe it is this idea that Robert mentioned of lifting the rook, but that also looks clumsy in its own right. There would be some tactics there potentially, and both sides having loose pieces. So I do expect Arjun to play the waiting game, just a very slow move here, but it's not necessarily his style. It's not what he likes to do. He's going to be trying to calculate and solve problems that way.
Well, Arjun's style is to be more aggressive, but if he tries to do that in this position by going after that weak a-pawn with the knight falling back to b7, yes, it looks as if that a-pawn is undefendable and you're going to end up losing it. But actually, this would be a huge mistake because now the white queen gets so active, David. You go queen to c6 and you're hitting that a6 pawn. And this is a trade that is going to result in white's favor. Because take a look at this. If you capture the a pawn with the knight, queen takes a6, hits the rook, hits the knight, and you actually end up losing a lot of material. So right now, you need to play it a little slowly, like you're saying, make a pawn move, make a rook move. And I like this because now what he's done is he's defended that a6 pawn. He's threatening to go back with the knight to b7, the idea that I was just discussing. And if the queen moves forward, then at least the a6 pawn is defended.
Yeah, that's what we call prophylaxis in chess, just defending against threats that haven't yet appeared on the board. And he's just covering his weak pawns, covering any potential threats for white. So really nice, classy move there from Arjun. It did cost him a bit of time, and now the players are roughly balanced on the clock.
And also,
really tense.
The queens are eyeing up each other. What is your tip for beginners in chess in a position like this? Do you want to keep the queens on the board? Do you want to get rid of them? What is the best tip?
It's always going to be situation dependent, but in terms of this position in particular, the queen trade, if white captures black queen, it welcomes the black king towards the center in the endgame. That's very important. And from black's point of view, you want to take the queen to ruin white's pawn structure, but we were talking about those lines where the white rook gets too active after a series of trades. So we say to keep the tension until you're entirely ready to release it. And this is a great example that neither side really wants to budge. And I think we're going to see Wesley play a move with a pawn over on the king side, likely his f2 pawn up to f3, just to create a pawn chain and defend his pawns. The tension is going to remain here. It's not always easy to give a kind of a blueprint of what to do when queens are staring at each other.
Yeah, I have a very young student, and OK, there we go, Robert predicting the move correctly. And this young student, her instinct is to trade pieces. Anytime there's an opportunity, she'll make the trade. She doesn't even think, just because she assumes that the endgame will be simpler, easier to understand. But the thing is, you have to trade on your own terms. You have to make sure you don't give your opponent 2 or 3 tempi there. For example, if white does go and trade off and allow the black king into the center, that only improves the black position. If black trades off, you improve the white position. So you have to make sure it's on your own terms. You don't rush and you don't worsen your position in the meantime. And there we go. Tanya, you have your prophet hat on again, predicting this knight retreat.
You know, I liked it at first, but while you were just talking about this great advice about trading on your terms, I got a little worried about it because, yes, you're hitting a5, and once white moves the queen to c6, the a6 pawn would be attacked, but I thought the rook was hanging. But instead, Wesley chooses a different approach here. He actually moved the rook up to d5 to defend that a5 pawn, and look at this. Arjun, not even taking a moment, immediately blitzes out the move c5, and what he's done is he's made his intentions clear. He wants to pick up that a5 pawn, but in the bargain, he's made this d6 pawn such a huge weakness.
Playing with confidence.
Confidence,
but confidence.
Also very committal. This is the type of move that I would never dream of. It wouldn't be on my radar, I've got to say, just from the way I was taught when I was young. Don't make long-term weaknesses in your position. Black certainly has weakened the pawn structure. Robert's talked about the base of the structure before, and Black's knight is tied down forever now. Wesley's queen has got out of dodge, and yes, you can take that white A pawn, that corner pawn, at any time you want, but you might lose the whole of your pawn center in the process. Yeah, very committal decision.
It's the type of move that has become more accessible to humans with the advent of the engines. If you showed this position to a grandmaster from 1950, they would say, what is wrong with you? That c5 move was terrible, out of the question, because it completely ruins your pawn structure. And yet, we see the eval bar, it's sliding slightly in white's favor, but it's because it's hard for white to do anything. The rook on a1 in the corner, tied down to the defense of the a5 pawn. The rook on b5 for black is staring right at it. And the d6 pawn, it's hard to pile up more pressure on it, and the knight is a good defender of that pawn, especially when the rook is leading the way. So I feel like that type of move has become increasingly common in modern times. But if you went back to that famous book, Zurich 1953, and were analyzing with the legends of the day and showed them that move c5, they would say, get out of here. You're not a strong player. Arjun Erigaisi is strong. He is well aware that he can hold down the fort despite appearances.
Yeah, I do worry, however, if the knight is stuck on this square as a defensive piece, therefore the rook is stuck on this square, it can never retreat, and this rook in the corner may be stuck defending this this loose pawn, then suddenly Wesley might switch his focus, switch his attention, swing his rook over, even if it comes at the cost of this weak A pawn, and when he does lever open the position, open things up, then things might turn against the black king. Suddenly the black knight is caught on the wrong side of the board. It can never act as a defender. Arjun does switch his rook across, and what do you guys think?
And I
why
think
go for that now?
This was important because if we can just show this point that Robert was making, that if actually black did pick up the a5 pawn, giving up the d6 pawn, it just shows what a disaster black's pawn structure would have been. You know, you've still got a weakness on a6. The c5 pawn is super weak, and it just feels as if black's position is going to fall apart, which is why Arjun decided to now reshuffle the position a bit, put that rook in the center. It feels the move c5 was made to just make the position once again, get it into a little more dynamic territory, but very committal there. Creates this long-term, lifelong weakness of d6, and I have a bad feeling that this might come to haunt Arjun.
Yeah, he still needs a few moves to arrange the possible capture of this pawn, so Wesley has this luxury now. He has 2 or 3 moves to try and build up, whether that's playing on the other side of the board, trying to push this pawn forward or not, whether he finds a different plan. That's what Wesley's going to be thinking about. But only 4 minutes against 6. He needs to speed up.
To Wesley, you know, he can do what David was suggesting, slide the rook over to the king side, but that creates a dynamic position, and that's when the clock becomes a real factor. Wesley, for now, he can kind of sit on the position. It's locked up. He can make small moves, but with only 4 minutes and counting down on his clock, he does not want to enter tactical territory against Arjun Erigaisi, who is an absolute wizard when pieces are flying.
And I think this is where we can see the clash of styles as we've been talking about. If Arjun was playing with the white pieces, David, I could have bet that your idea would have been on the board. With the rook sliding down to the f-file, say, give up that pawn on a5, you know, I'm playing for the initiative. And if all of black's pieces are on the king side, we would have seen that rook f1, f4 break that you were hinting at. But of course, Wesley keeping everything under control, just going for a more solid approach, keeps the tension as is, makes a small little move h3, and Arjun wanting to keep the pressure on the clock also makes an equally useful move. When in doubt, just create a little space for your king.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like Wesley is just maintaining the status quo, not feeling that he can go for it yet with just 3 minutes on the clock, not making any dynamic decisions. We've had this debate in the past. I know a lot of top chess players, they look at Wesley, they see one of the most talented players out there. His instinct's just supreme, but he doesn't like taking these risks. It's as if he hates losing more than he enjoys winning. And it just feels to me, these last couple of moves, yes, he's potentially preparing a pawn break with f4, but he's not really sure what to do. He doesn't really want to choose a specific plan and go for it.
And the a5 pawn is a long-term weakness. So if black can slide his rook up from e8 to e6, defend that pawn on d6, maybe bring the queen on over to the other side of the board, the a5 pawn may be falling. And that's what Wesley has to look out for. Black doesn't have the time to just put all the pieces over on the queen side, because that move f3 to f4 for white uses a battering ram, open that flank. That's what Wesley needs to consider. And his last move hints at that. He brought his queen back a square so that f4 becomes a viable option. And with that rook on a1 eventually sliding towards the king side, we could see him take this into tactical waters. And queen f6 from Arjun, it prevents that move f4. If we just show that quickly, that would be a huge blunder, because after pawn takes pawn, the rook on a1 is in fact loose. So it's a multi-purpose move. It defends the pawn on d6 another time. It also prevents that f4 move, which is kind of White's only big idea. I like the way that both players are handling this. They're keeping the tension, the status quo, but I like Arjun's clock a bit more because he has the extra time.
Yeah, and both sides just playing with their kings there. It's definitely a waiting game, just both sides kind of playing copycat, moving a pawn, putting their king behind that pawn. It's a waiting game, neither side willing to make that first move to break the tension. And I think we'll have to wait for a few more maneuvering moves before finally one side cracks and just lashes out and either sacrifices a pawn if you're Wesley So, or goes for that pawn if you're Arjun Erigaisi.
I like your colorful analysis board now, David.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to do the colors. It just happened.
Very nice, very pretty. And we also think it's very nice when you guys share your selfies. So today, this is the Airthings Masters. Every day, we are giving out an Airthings device signed by Magnus Carlsen himself. And we're going to give out one device today to someone who shares a cool selfie using #ChessChamps on Twitter. So go ahead and share your selfies. How are you watching the show? Who are you watching it with? Where are you watching it? We want to know. So send your selfie, and preferably in landscape mode.
And was that a little bit of a draw offer by Wesley, just shuffling his queen one step ahead and then bringing it back, and Arjun saying, no, I want to play on?
Ooh, potentially. And Arjun, of course, he's not known for his tendency to make draws. He's known for being very ambitious.
He's a fighter, David.
Yeah, he'll fight on, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to play this till the end, and that's just his style of play, regardless of who he's playing against. And look at those last couple of moves, Robert, that Wesley's gone for. The queen went to d2, then it stepped back, and then it's now back again to d3. And that just makes one feel that Wesley perhaps doesn't really know what he wants to do right now.
And maybe he's claiming that black can make no progress either. And there is kind of a hidden threat. The queen is eyeing the rook on b5. So if you are not looking out for it, if you make a careless move, that queen, when the pawn still existed, could have sacrificed. So if we just take a move back and the knight didn't take the pawn, let's say instead of grabbing the pawn on a5, yeah, that move h5. So queen takes b5 is something that you have to consider because the pawn takes a6. Knights are very clumsy. If the knight moves back to save itself, then the pawn goes up to a7. It's unstoppable going to the other side of the board. So I think Wesley was trying just to move back and forth and say, you are not just going to have a free hand. And now we see that Arjun takes the pawn a5, but he's frozen in place. If the knight moves away now, the a6 pawn falls. If the knight just stays on the rim, it's looking a bit dim. And that d6 pawn remains a target. I think that we're at a bit of a standstill, and white is no worse.
Yeah, he's happily given up that pawn, but now Arjun is the one with the more difficult questions to answer. And if you can't bring this knight into play, it's very, very awkward. We might see another repetition of the position if black just kind of sidesteps, yo-yos with the queen, white just sidesteps and yo-yos with his queen, and neither side making progress. I do wonder whether Wesley will be thinking of sliding the queen the whole way across to the corner, just to put extra pressure on that knight, force it to move by brute force. But yeah, we will see, first of all, how Arjun is feeling about his chances. He does sidestep with his queen. At least he can slide back to defend this knight, give it extra protection if he really needs to later on. But still very tense, as Robert says. I don't believe white is worse here, despite that pawn deficit temporarily.
I'm very impressed with Arjun's decision to not repeat moves. Even once. I don't know if Wesley intended to actually continue with the repetition, and we'll perhaps never know that. But Arjun makes his intentions really clear, that he wants to take his chances. And this is what we've been discussing, right? That Arjun needs to stick to his style. He needs to create chaos on the board. Has to have that ice water in my veins approach here. So I mean, against a player like Wesley with the black pieces, most of us, well, I'm not even going to put myself in that category, but like most players would be happy to take a repetition and say, you know what, I get white in the next round. You want to repeat, I'm happy, but Arjun here fighting this out.
Is that what they teach in the Indian school of chess, Tanya? I never see you take quick draws either. I always see you fighting out to the very end.
You know, I've always felt that women chess players, female chess players, they have a thing for fighting it out till the end. I don't think we're very comfortable taking draws. I think we're fighters like that.
Oh.
Yeah, and I see Robert looking at me with his eyebrows raised.
No, nothing to do with what you were saying. Look at the last move that was played. Wesley So also is not in the business of making a draw and repeating moves. He pushes his pawn to f4, and he's saying, let's go. If he can get one more move, a free turn, he would push that pawn forward and create an attack with his pawns against the black king. So if black says, I don't want any part of that, let me take your pawn on f4. Well, thank you very much. My bishop is finally free. Those black pawns on the dark squares were making sure that bishop had nowhere to go. Now d6 is hanging, 3 white pieces attacking it. The rook on b5 stuck defending the knight over there. If the knight moves back to b7 to defend the pawn d6, down goes your a6 pawn, and your rook on b5 is loose and kind of trapped as well. So d6 is a problem point for Arjun Erigaisi. I think he's going to regret taking that pawn a5. Sometimes your biggest strength is your biggest weakness, and playing fighting chess can backfire, and I think we are seeing the signs of that right now.
And look at the clock as well. Arjun now has got less time than Wesley So. With all these trades that have happened, the d6 pawn is a weakness. But yeah, I was just, you know, just to finish that point, I think very rarely will you find quick draws in women chess top events.
As long as the Musichuk sisters are not playing each other. I'm not trying to call them out. Anyway. I'm just, you know, being honest.
Nice weather today.
Family over everything, Robert.
Actually, it's calculation over everything. You got to talk to James Caney a little bit.
And meanwhile, okay, look at the evaluation bar, because that black d6 pawn has dropped. Yes, it's come at the cost of white's central pawn, but if you count the pieces in the center of the board, white is up. Those 2 black pieces, the black rook, the black knight on the edge, they're balanced out by white's rook. Black is essentially playing a whole knight down, and if the attention does switch towards the king side, towards the kings, it's black who will be suffering. So again, the count here doesn't matter. Stop the count. That black extra pawn, irrelevant, and I really fear for Arjun's life here in this game.
This turned around really quickly, and he's coming down on the clock as well, but it's kind of level here right now, but huge threats with that rook landing on with a check on d8, which will force the king up to a square where it might pin the rook on e4. So big threats. The one thing that is going for Arjun here is that Wesley's rook on a4 is a little stuck. Imagine if that could come all the way down and join the attack from the f file or the e file. That would be an absolute disaster. But this is looking tricky. Arjun needs to keep control over his nerves and make all the right moves to defend this one.
Yeah, massive threat on the board, as Tanya said there. If black just plays kind of an irrelevant move, then there will be a nasty check, and there's nowhere good for this king to go. Just to highlight your point here, maybe the safest square would be walking into a pin, and you don't want to see that one appear if you're black. So huge threat. How does he neutralize that one? You could maybe swap off a set of rooks at the cost of a pawn, but that's a hard move to make because then you'll always be fighting for only a draw, and it's not Arjun's style. But maybe damage limitation is the name of the game. And, OK, he does choose that move just to trade off one of white's active pieces. And after a rook trade, yes, white takes the pawn back. It's level material now, but black still has a bad knight against a very strong bishop.
But the fact that Wesley is thinking here, because he would lose his rook, and that is what I was about to say. Wow. He was thinking he does not take the rook. Immediately, he says, I'm going to trade on my own terms. If you take this rook, if black captures it, the queen goes up with check and wins the knight on a5. The geometry of this position is beautiful in white's favor. So what has Wesley accomplished? He's dragged Arjun's king out into the open. The rook trade has in fact occurred, but the difference is the black king on f7, which means it could be a queen a7 check over there. There are some issues that black needs to solve, and it's even material, but it's not a level game.
And 8 seconds on the clock for Arjun in a very difficult position where you need to make very precise defensive moves.
Few seconds left. He does retreat his knight, but the checks don't stop. The pressure doesn't stop. Check after check at the moment, and Arjun is really lagging behind on the clock, and he does beg for a queen trade. If Wesley wants a really safe endgame now, he just trades the queens and goes for an extra pawn. White's rook is ready to grab a pawn, but of course, black's king is weak, so you should keep the queens on the board. And, OK, will we follow that advice? What do you think, Tanya?
I think Arjun's now hoping that Wesley repeats with the check, but I will be shocked if Wesley gives queen f4 check again and offers a repetition. No. I don't believe that's going to happen, David.
Worst comes to the worst, Wesley takes the queens off and tries to go for an endgame. But, yeah, I think he'll keep the queens on. As you said, Tanya, maybe the key idea at some point will be to retreat the white rook, swing it across. You need to get it to a better
spot.
What
is happening?
There's not going to be a repetition. Okay. I think Wesley's going to bring his queen on the diagonal up to c7 with check and freeze some of black's pieces. When your king is safer in a position like this, you want to keep the queens on the board. So I think what Wesley is doing is he repeats, but why would he make a draw here? He could trade queens, go up at pawn in the endgame. So there's no way Wesley So is thinking, let's just make a draw. And you see Stockfish suggesting queen c7 check, just bringing the queen to a new square with check. The a6 pawn is tender. If the knight drops back, oh my gosh, he traded queens. I mean, he went for the safe approach, and that's been one of the biggest problems for Wesley So in his career. Sometimes he just takes the safer approach when he needs to take a little bit of risk keeping the queens on the board.
And Arjun gets another life now. I mean, he's still down a pawn, and it's a difficult endgame to hold, but at least you're not getting checkmated. And black's rook is more active than white's rook. White's rook stuck to the defense of that weak backwards c-pawn. This looks like there is hope and life still alive. Life still there for Arjun.
Ooh, but the clock is ticking for Arjun Erigaisi.
Ticking very quickly. And we did see Stockfish gave white a killer advantage, +5 if he'd kept the queens on. But as you've both mentioned there, suddenly Arjun's going to be breathing a sigh of relief. And he's getting his pieces active. That black rook very strongly placed now.
The knight's jumping into the game as well. You're hitting that bishop on d2. Things are getting not that easy for Wesley to convert this one.
Yeah, and he's gone to grab a second pawn. He's currently 2 pawns up, but both of black's pieces are on really menacing squares, really active. And Robert, I think he might save this, Arjun.
Yeah, Wesley is one of the best bullet chess players in the world. So with limited time on the clock, he still can thrive. He needs to use his outside pass pawn, the h-pawn, and distract black's forces. But Arjun looking like he is ready to save this game. Those pawns on the queen side, c2 and b3, light squares. You have a dark square bishop. You can't defend them easily. And that's why we see the liquidation. Wesley So up a pawn, but Arjun Erigaisi understands his next move will target that pawn on b3. And that's why Wesley plays bishop e5. What a smart move. And maybe Wesley can still win this.
Yeah, still chances for sure, but there is reduced material. So Arjun's best bet, if he can remove that pawn on b3, will be to try and get rid of all of white's pawns, even at the cost of his own knight. But the knight isn't on a great circuit, we've got to say. At the moment, he's keeping the white king out. The white king cannot advance, but at some point, it might start heading towards that lone ranger, that black b pawn. I still think this is great winning chances for white, despite only having a few pawns left.
And we see the eval bar agrees with you, David, and that's because Black's knight cannot get to that B pawn. If we can just take away all the queenside pawns, then this will end in a draw. But now what has happened is that White actually goes on to pick up the B4 pawn. What Arjun wants to do is then fall back with the knight to C1. There will be no way to defend the B3 pawn. The pawns have been traded off, and I would feel that this is a draw, but the problem is the knight is getting trapped.
Yeah, you're not coming back from this square. You're not finding any safe squares later on. Maybe there's no way to go for the black knight yet. As soon as the white king starts marching towards it, the black king comes down to gobble up the remaining white pawns. So first, Wesley is fixing that pawn situation on the king side. He's going to hope that the black king can't make any headway towards them. But, OK, now you can start trying to pick up that knight. Surely there's a way.
And... wait, 0 seconds? Yeah, and I was just looking at the clock. Okay, they're still playing on seconds and they need to be precise. Wesley, they're repeating just once so that he can get some time on the clock.
But how's he going to win that black knight? He's repeated the position twice now. He has to be really careful to avoid a draw.
He needs to bring his king up. There it is, because if the knight goes down, the bishop slides back with check, winning the knight on C1. So I think Wesley has found it. The knight has nowhere to go, and that's why the pawn is pushed. Oh, my gosh, if those last pawns get traded, even up a bishop, it would still be a draw.
Is Wesley winning now?
He should be. We've got to trust the evaluation bar here because it's pure calculation. The margin for error, I'm not sure it's very high. That's the only thing. We could see the evaluation bar drop if he makes one slip, but he should be winning. And luckily, the white H-pawn is the colour. It does promote on the H8 square, a dark square, so it's the same colour as the bishop. OK, he didn't trap the knight. He didn't manage to win it, but he's 2 pawns up now, and the knight is so far away. Should be winning. What do we think?
And this is the point. If the pawn was of the wrong color, David, Black could have sacrificed that knight for the f4 pawn and just get his king to the right square, and it would have ended in a draw. But now Arjun has to fight for this one. It is a winning position for Wesley. He still has to show a little bit of technique, but I believe that Wesley will do this. He will take this point home.
Yeah, the problem is it's always going to be zugzwang. There's no fortress here because the black knight has to guard against 2 pawns, and knights can never lose time. They're the worst piece at losing time. White will just wait with the bishop from time to time. There we go, just improving the bishop, and eventually, slowly but surely, the white pawns will start to advance even further.
Because sometimes Black's best move is no move at all. You can't do that when you have a knight bishop. If they want to go up 2 squares, they can stop 1 square in between, whereas the knight has to change his color complex. And we see Wesley bringing his king over to help the H-pawn run forward. The king will slide over to G4, the H-pawn will go up to H5, and the black king and knight cannot stop both pawns at the same time.
And that right corner is so important. Otherwise, Black could have just sacrificed the knight for the pawn. That H8 square being the same color as the bishop that Wesley has just changes the result of this game. It's working out for Wesley. He's improved his position. The knights, as you're mentioning, don't have good waiting moves. And at the end, we can see Wesley slowly but surely making progress with his pawns and his king.
Yep, 2 are better than none. And those 2 white pawns both promote on dark squares, which is a bit of a bonus. But look at this black knight. It's a sad situation here. He's got to retreat it all the way back home. Knight on F8, there's no mate, I say, but knight on F8 here is not going to help you save the game. And they're advancing. Eventually, your defensive formation will be broken.
Getting close to 100 moves in this game.
Yep, we're getting very, very close. But these players, they aren't paid by the move, unfortunately. And that won't save Arjun at all. He's just got to wait now. He's just going to move his knight back and forth. But eventually, I think there will be ways to kind of trap that knight, stalemate that black knight almost. And, OK, first Wesley's relocating his king, bringing his king the whole way round. And Black's blockade isn't going to last. There we go. A stalemate of that black knight. The black knight has no moves now without being captured. The black king is going to have to make way. But Wesley will lose a move, and he'll find a way eventually to bring his own king forward. There we go. Zugzwang. No good moves for Black. If you could pass, it would be a draw, but that's not possible in chess.
Yeah. You move the king anywhere, the king steps forward, you take away all the squares, the knight will have to move somewhere now, and it either gets picked up for free or traded. Excellent endgame play by Wesley, this one.
Yeah, and last stalemate trick, it looks like, from Arjun, but it doesn't work.
Not.
You can take that knight either way with your king or your bishop. It's not stalemate, and I think we have a result. Wesley So has won the game.
Yeah. Has he given up yet, Arjun Erigaisi?
Yeah, he's thrown in the towel.
There we have it. Yep. Wesley So strikes first here in the losers semi-final. He is putting Arjun Erigaisi in a must-win situation in Game 2 starting in 5 minutes. Showing no emotion here, Wesley So, but what a game he played. And here is today's Lisoveta learning point.
So today's learning point is about trading pieces on your own terms, and one position, one scenario not to trade pieces is when you have the safer king. Here, there's a standoff between the two queens. White does have the option of taking the queens off the board, and Wesley So against Arjun Erigaisi, he did go for this, but he almost spoiled his winning chances. He took the win in the end, but with a bit of luck. He should have kept the queens on the board. This queen check would have been devastating, forcing the black knight back, and now White can actually win in a variety of ways. You can go after this pawn in the next few moves. For White, it's extremely weak. You can try and get this rook back in the game. You can bring your bishop in to try and target this pinned black knight. It would have been all over within a few moves. Instead, Wesley So traded off, and this black king breathed a sigh of relief. It was no longer in trouble, and after recapturing, we saw that suddenly black was on the attack, White had to go passive, and black had great drawing chances. So only trade pieces if it really helps your position.
All right, we are learning, and we're going to take a quick Twitch break right now for anyone who is not a subscriber. For everyone else, well, we're going to announce the puzzle of today. Ivanka is coming into the studio. We've just seen Wesley win, putting Arjun in a must-win situation in game 2. That's going to be a dramatic game.
That is certainly going to be dramatic, and I have to say, very impressive stuff from Wesley. And I have to say, it looked like he'd been reading the Sun Tzu's Art of War, you know, appear weak when you are strong.
Nice.
I mean, I liked that one. Yeah. Very good. And talking about great endgame technique, he wasn't the only one. Fabiano Caruana just defeated Yu Yangyi with the black pieces in an excellent bishop endgame.
In Division 2.
In Division 2.
They are playing the winners.
They are playing the winners. And when it came to the grand final in Division 3, it was the craziest game I've ever seen in my life between Praggnanandhaa and Sam Sevian. I've never seen a king get out there in the middle game so openly, but it didn't work out for Sam Sevian.
So it was a draw?
It was a loss.
It was a loss.
It was a loss. So Praggnanandhaa takes the lead with the black pieces.
Praggnanandhaa takes the lead in the grand final in Division 3. This is best of 2 games in the grand final in Division 3. 2 young players fighting it out there. And I said it, Ivanka, we're going to announce the puzzle of today. You always bring a puzzle with you for the viewers and what you have up your sleeve today.
Today is no exception. And it's actually a study composed by Afanaseyev. And here it is. It's white to play, as always. And it does look like, you know, even though white is a knight and 2 pawns up, well, he's in trouble because that pawn on e2 is going to promote. But how does white save themselves?
So the puzzle is white to play.
White to play.
And save yourself.
Save yourself, win. I'm going to leave it up to the viewers to decide, because I think it's a bit of a giveaway if I tell them.
Yeah, okay.
So here it is. Get cracking. It's a great fun one as well.
Yeah.
Again, another one to involve the friends, the family, and once you've figured it out, share it on social media.
Yeah.
Share it with everyone you know.
Definitely. All right, there you have the puzzle, everyone. So get cracking at it, but you also need to follow game 2 in the losers semi-final. It's coming up very shortly. Some more action between Wesley So and Arjun Erigaisi.
Your subscription makes shows like this possible, which is why our Twitch subscribers will never see ads on chess.com. Connect your chess.com account and Twitch account at go.chess.com/connectaccounts, and bang, boom, voila, you're done. 100% ad-free bliss forevermore. Whether you're following our events on site or on stream, type the command connect in the chat, and thank you for helping bring these shows to life.
We're getting ready for game 2 in the losers semi-final between Wesley So and Arjun Erigaisi. And Tanya, you said it. It's actually a huge advantage to start out with the white pieces, like Wesley did here on the losers bracket, where there's only 2 games. And Arjun, he's in a must-win situation now.
He has to win on demand. Well, at least his task is cut out for him. But the bad news is he's playing Wesley So.
Yeah.
And Wesley is one of those guys, once he's taken the lead in a match, he goes super clinical and he's happy to just play solid, not take any chances. He'll just block everything that you can create. Well, Arjun does have the white pieces now. So I think it really comes down to what kind of position comes right out of the opening. If it is something even, Robert, David, I don't believe that Arjun then has a chance. He has to make sure right out of the opening we get something absolutely crazy.
Is it basically one of the hardest things to do in chess today? To beat Wesley So on demand?
Wesley So is a brick wall.
Yeah.
You do not want to punch against it. You're going to break your hand. That said, Arjun Erigaisi, he's willing to lose. And that's the most important thing when you have to win. He doesn't just play a safe style where he's going to draw the game. He will give it everything he has to play something maybe dubious that Wesley doesn't suspect. And he needs to catch Wesley So off guard, because when he's prepared, we saw what he did against Hikaru Nakamura. There was nothing. He didn't even bend, let alone break.
I feel like I want to put that in quotes and put it on my Twitter account. What was it? The most important thing when you have to win is to be willing to lose? Very good. All right. Yeah.
I'm learning too.
That's deep.
Yeah, that is very deep. What do you expect from Arjun coming into this must-win game, David?
Yeah, I also expect him to come all guns blazing against Wesley So. I'm not sure the opening, because he does play everything under the sun. Maybe a London system, but with a knight coming to c3. I'm not sure what we're allowed to call it these days, that one. But yeah, something aggressive, something that keeps all the pieces on the board and asks questions early.
He did beat Wesley So with the white pieces in the Blitz, in the Tata Steel Rapid in India. And there we saw Jabava London. So might be seeing, but no, he completely switches it up with one e4, and we've got an Italian.
I was hoping for an Evans Gambit, but we didn't see that. The Evans Gambit is when White sacrifices a pawn for a quick initiative. I think that's been proven that it doesn't quite work out, and there is quite a lot of theory that helps you parry it off. So I think we're getting a solid start thus far. I like this, though. Bishop g5, just posing some questions in the early going against Wesley So.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, however, about bringing the bishop out to g5 early is that Arjun has been doing it from time to time recently. He played this in Tata Steel. He's been playing this in the World Blitz, the World Rapid. And Wesley, if he's done his due diligence and if he's done some research on this opening, he will have been able to predict what Arjun is up to here. I remember Arjun played maybe the most bizarre-looking novelty I've ever seen against Ding in Vaikanze just a couple of weeks ago, playing this bizarre rook move that no human could ever understand, but a human might recommend. And so far, very standard stuff. It does look like Black has weakened his kingside by pushing a pawn forward to g5, but he has broken a nasty pin and kicked back White's dark square bishop to a bit of a blunted square. So still early days, but well-known territory.
Standard, David, and as you were mentioning, Robert, you're impressed with that approach with the bishop going to g5, and the main idea is to try to provoke Black to make these pawn moves. And of course, all of this has been done before. We're still in theory, but just having this kind of position where Black has advanced those king pawns in front and weakened a few squares, you never know how this will go. And the whole idea is to make it turbulent. So I think that's a good opening approach.
There's one problem. It seems like Wesley So knows how this is going to go, because he's throwing his kingside pawns up with reckless abandon. He's like, let's bring g5, let's go h5, and hold nothing back. And that's the sign of a well-prepared player. Arjun tried to strike in the center with d4. Wesley says, I'm going to go after your minor piece in the kingside, brings his queen out to reinforce the e5 pawn. So it does seem like Wesley So knows everything here. That's a big problem for Arjun Erigaisi. I like the type of position we have, but I also like Wesley So's preparation.
Dr. Goat on in the Twitch chat saying, when is the last time Wesley So even lost a game?
Never.
Yeah.
He never loses.
Yeah.
Wow, literally, this tournament, he's unbeaten so far. 2 Title Tuesdays. Vaikanze didn't lose a game. I don't think he's lost in 2023 yet. Right?
Yeah.
What a year it's been so far.
It's been amazing. And he said one of his goals for 23 is to win a big online event. And it looks like he wants to make the most of this second shot that he has. Well, he did win it last year with the Global Championship. And Wesley So taking the lead in this match and playing confidently and taking his chances in the second one as well.
Yeah, the winner of this match will go through to face Hikaru Nakamura in the losers final, starting right after this match has finished. And the winner of the losers final will meet Magnus Carlsen in the grand final tomorrow. Will it be Wesley So? Will it be Arjun Erigaisi or Hikaru Nakamura?
And Kaya, on your birthday, what do you want to see? Do you want to see Arjun win this one, fight back for Armageddon? Or do you want to see a Wesley So against Hikaru Nakamura final in this bracket.
I want to see Armageddon. That's all I wish for. Whoever it is, I want to see Armageddon.
And Wesley So is a very nice guy, so if he hears this, he probably would say, all right, Kaya, Armageddon for your birthday. Sounds like a nice present. And we are getting a fight that could lead to that Armageddon, but every single turn, it feels like Wesley So is moving instantly. That must strike some fear into Arjun Erigaisi. He needs to win this game, but the position is incredibly dynamic right now. We see the black king side. It is open. You've thrown your pawns forward, which means there are weak squares left behind, and white has given up the bishop. The last move captured the knight on c6, and then black was able to capture back. So the pawn structure is bad on the left side of the board, the queen side, and the right side of the board, the king side, because the pawns are sticking out like sore thumbs. That said, the bishop on a7, such a strong piece for black, staring all the way across the board to the enemy king. I feel like Wesley, he's now slowing down. He might finally be out of preparation.
Yeah, and just a few moves ago, we saw him pause for 30 seconds. He looked off to his left side, and normally when players are staring off to the left, staring off into the air, they're activating that side of their brain, which is the memory part. So he was just recalling his opening notes, but now for the first time, he's really looking into the board, trying to work things out. So I think you're right, Robert. He's on his own for the first time in this game, and it's not the type of position you want to be on your own. You want to know exactly what's going on here, because multiple threats. White is eyeing up this pawn. This pawn is undefended, or not sufficiently defended right now. This pawn you could at least hint at capturing at some point. And how does Wesley deal with both of those threats? You don't want to take out time out now and just play an ugly looking move. You don't really have the luxury of lining things up and defending. And of course he plays dynamically, more energetically. He attacks the white queen instead. So once this white queen moves, it's not clear where she goes, but for example, if she steps up, there might be a drawback. The bishops will suddenly align, and look at this nasty pin along this diagonal, combine it with this bishop, and this is nasty stuff for white. So I'm more expecting Arjun now to slide the other way with his queen. Okay, he has gone out. I was going to say maybe offer a trade of queens, because you do have the better pawn structure long term, but Arjun, remember, he's a much more ambitious player than me, and he does go after these black weaknesses. Many pawns up for grabs now.
I'm into it. I really like the way Arjun is playing. Wesley So is capable of playing energetic, dynamic style, but he's forced into it in this game. He really didn't have a choice based on Arjun's opening. So Arjun picking a great opening in a must-win game, and now the dynamic is very difficult for black to deal with, because c6 is hanging. If you defend that pawn, e5 is loose. So you have multiple pawns hanging, and look at Wesley So play. He brings his knight to f6. The reason why is the bishop on a7 is a very powerful piece. His next move will be a knight jump over to h5, where he attacks the bishop, which is not defended. There is a pawn connecting to it, but that pawn is pinned. And so white's pieces on the king side, those minor pieces, not really doing all that much. So giving up material for the activity, and Wesley So knows it's well worth it.
This is a stunning move. What a way to defend the position. You just go for the offense, and just taking Robert's point forward, you can pick up that pawn on e5, the central pawn, the key pawn in black's position with two pieces, but both bad idea. If that knight comes in, knight h5, and your bishop is suddenly trapped. You don't have a good square for it. Everything's hanging. The knight on e5 will be hanging, or you lose the bishop. On the other hand, just to point out the power of that bishop on a7, if you pick that e5 pawn up with the bishop, then David, you got this banger move, g3 on the board, just blasting the position open. That bishop on a7, an absolute monster. You can't grab that g3 pawn. Bishop takes g3. You say, wait, what just happened? Nothing happened, because there's a pin. You simply pick up the bishop with your queen. Thank you very much. Game over. And which is why Wesley goes for this move, knight f6. Arjun responds with a bit of greed, but for the other pawn. Takes the pawn on c6, and for now, the rook on a8 is under attack. So you don't have the time to make the move knight h5. What I'm expecting from Wesley is a simple developing move. You can move that bishop from c8 and say, my rook is defended. If you want to pick up the c7 pawn, go ahead. But then once again, the knight can find its way to h5, but rook c8 would be even stronger, picking up that knight on c4.
Yeah, a bunch of tactics here in the air, and once Wesley does defend his rook or develop his bishop, then the threats will be maintained, they will continue, and Arjun has to make sure they don't spiral out of control. I'm looking at the clock times. Arjun does have 14 minutes, so it feels like he's still in or around his opening preparation. It's something he's cooked up at home, but yeah, it certainly is the type of position that could go any way in either direction, and for Wesley, that's not 100% comfortable when he only needs to draw.
And look at his chess pose now.
Yeah.
That is full focus. We haven't seen that one from Wesley yet.
Yeah, that's like Batman type of focus. It's like making a mask with his own hands. Just
tunnel vision there.
Yeah, not letting anything from the outside world distract him, Wesley. So big decision to be made. Still a decent position according to the eval bar, so we've got to assume that his pawn sacrifice was justified, objectively correct, but so hard to handle for humans, this one.
It's not the same exact position that happened in the Olympiad, but I'm just recalling a game between Nodirbek Abdusattorov and Petala Harikrishna, because in the Olympiad, Harikrishna beat him with black and was able to win a really nice game, an important game for the Indian team. So it has that same contours where black goes for the attack, the king looks a bit exposed, black's pawns look overextended, but really it's white's king that's in danger. But I do like this. I keep saying it, that Arjun Erigaisi, he doesn't mind losing. He may lose this game, but he is begging Wesley So to answer important questions. Do you have enough compensation, that vague term, for sacrifice material? You're down one pawn right now. And that knight on c4, which is attacking multiple pawns, it can always swing back to block that bishop on a7. The other knight from h2 can go back next to the king on f1, and you can just put your pieces together, make sure that you have a compact structure, and then you say to Wesley, you sure you're good? You are down a pawn, it might become two.
Well, Arjun right now is a man who has nothing to lose. A draw or a loss will mean the same thing. So only one result works out for him, which also helps him make these brave decisions. Once he's taken this step of moving the queen in one direction, he has to pick up those pawns and ask Wesley the question, show me what you got, show me where your money is. And Wesley, with this pawn structure, having already lost a pawn, needs to continue with the momentum, with the pressure on, with the initiative, and not care about material anymore. It is all about the attack that he can build against white's king, against that bishop on g3. Wesley slowing down a little bit, and look at that clock. Look at that clock. Wesley's got 8 minutes. Arjun's taken a minute up till now.
Yeah, and he was shaking his head slightly, Wesley So. He's not happy at all, out of his comfort zone. He wanted a stable pawn structure where he could just slowly maneuver, slowly find his way into the game. The one thing I will say from personal experience is you don't want to poke the bear. If you poke Wesley, he'll come at you. He'll find a way because he's so universal when he needs to be, when he wants to be. But right now, he's not enjoying it too much. I'm expecting him to go for a move that you mentioned there, Tanya. Just move the light square bishop. I'm not sure where you move it for black, but just connect your rooks and go from there. Yeah. The threats will continue.
But we do hope you guys at home are enjoying the Airthings Masters and enjoying the show that Wesley So and Arjun Erigaisi is putting on right now. I know some people are enjoying a watch party together right now at the Good Night. Look at that. Airthings people at the Good Night having a watch party, enjoying the chess. That is very cool. Maybe we should go to the Good Night later today, you guys.
Oh, it's so fun. Yes. It's my favorite place here. I mean, if anyone's in Oslo, find yourself here any time of the year, you've got to go to the Good Night. It is the coolest chess pub that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'll race you there after the show. I want to know the air quality there as well. Tweet us.
Yeah, but you have the advantage because you're a local. You know how to get there. Tanya's relying on you.
we can ski there so you can get some.
And you have a bunch of good memories from the Good Night now. You did really well in the pub quiz together with Magnus Carlsen. You guys teamed up. And you won the chess game together with Tanya against David and Ivanka.
Oh, thanks, Happy birthday.
But yeah, we're all having a good time at the Good Night when we go there. This chess pub in Oslo.
And meanwhile, Robert, profit again, dropping the knight back now, Arjun. Very safe square. I just love it. Keeping things compact as you described and keeping things nice and safe.
Look at the clock. Right now, Wesley So is down to about 6 minutes, 20 seconds, and Arjun has barely spent any time. So I think for Wesley, one of the pivotal questions that he's asking himself is, how much deeper is Arjun's preparation? We saw Arjun impress Vishy Anand at the Tata Steel event in India, where he was saying, oh, I have this 10 more moves, and it was already move 30. So this is scary for a player. It may objectively be okay for black, but you make one mistake, and that eval bar jumps up and says that white has a huge edge. So I think right now for Wesley, he needs to bring his knight over to the rim. We keep talking about these ideas, the knight attacking the bishop. He needs to go forward. He doesn't have time to pause. He is down material. But that white knight on h2 will simply slide back home to f1 and say, what attack do you really have? We have seen in previous days the black king, Magnus Carlsen, try to do something like this, slide up the board, the rook go to its starting square, and try to deliver a checkmate down the h-file. That seems very far away, but we see with Wesley's last move that he feels that now is the time he needs to pounce.
Yeah, he needs to pounce. Then again, knights are a king's best friend, and these are two very, very strong defenders, the two white knights. And there we go. One of them drops back to f1. keeping everything under control, and that's the big question I feel here. Is black quick enough? You're still a pawn down, more pawns to follow, this pawn about to drop, and is this plan quick enough? It costs 1 move to move the king, costs 2 moves to move the rook, maybe 3 moves to move the knight, and then 4, 5 to checkmate. I don't know if you get that time.
You know, with this last move that Wesley's made, it looks like he's doing everything right, but once again, Arjun just blitzing out that knight retreat again feels like he's in his preparation. You were talking about how he impressed Vishy earlier at Tata Steel, and that was a preparation up to move 36.
Whoa.
We're currently on move 19. It was a game against Nihal Sari, and Nihal made 1 blunder, and that was all over. And that was all the way up to move 36. At this level, your prep needs to be deep. Some say as deep as true love.
Or deeper. Wasn't that in the Italian game as well? Am I mistaken? Which opening was that one that he prepared all the way to move 36?
Yeah, the one.
Italian.
And the last move was this small pawn move F3, which wins the game in this endgame. If you haven't looked at it, you guys have to check it out. Brilliant prep there, and just really nice ideas.
Yeah, and Wesley is going to be breathing a sigh of relief because for the first time, Arjun has properly stopped to think. So maybe not that deep, his opening preparation, not as deep as move 36, but it's move 24. Impressive stuff either way.
But it's either relief or fear, because sometimes when your opponent starts thinking after all the preparation, it means you made a mistake. So you typically see the first 3 lines of the engine saying, these are the top moves. And then maybe Wesley's like, did I just make the 5th best move and my position is bad? But I do think we have seen Arjun Erigaisi. He left his preparation. He's on his own. He does have some standard-looking moves to play. His rook in the corner isn't doing much. He can slide it towards the center. And he is up a pawn for now. He should be feeling pretty good about his chances here. And he knows that he is not just making a simple strategic draw. He is going to fight to the bitter end. This is the exact type of position that he wanted. And now he's got it. He has a lead on the clock. He should continue to use the clock as a weapon.
That's an 8-minute lead on the clock. And that's got to count for something. The queens are still on the board. It's a complete mess. And of course, Wesley has things under control so far, but he still has some difficult decisions coming up. And one can imagine those challenges with this pawn structure that Black has. He would need and require some time to navigate those waters. It really looks like in a win-on-demand situation, Arjun's got the dream scenario, regardless of what the eval bar says.
Yeah. So how much time would you want to invest here? It's a crucial position. You're finally out of your preparation. You have to think on your own 2 feet. How much would you invest? 2-3 more minutes? Or would you just try to get a few quick moves down on the board to keep the pressure on Wesley?
It is very critical here for Arjun as well. As you mentioned, it's very possible that his preparation is now over and this is new territory for Arjun. He perhaps realizes that he needs to keep his chances alive, needs to keep the initiative going, can't trade off too many pieces. I would say another minute or 2, but he needs to keep that pressure on the clock. That is absolutely key for this match. I would say another minute, David. If he takes longer than that, Wesley's confidence grows. And every second that Arjun is spending to think on the board, Wesley's getting that additional time. We can see him on the camera. It's not as if he's looking around chilling. He is calculating right now. So Arjun, the more time he takes, the more time Wesley gets.
Yeah, and we see Wesley kind of a bit restless, bobbing his head there. He's calculating, as you say, but also getting a bit excited. Maybe he's proud of himself finding a move that Arjun hasn't looked at. I don't know if Arjun's got photographic memory, but I'm impressed that he's memorized to move 24. These days I forget things by move 3 or 4. But in the end, playing the most natural move. A bit odd to spend almost 4 minutes and then just centralize your rook. This looked like an automatic almost, but it makes sense, Robert. Just trying to get rooks off the board. I don't think we care that we're potentially dropping the white A2 pawn. Black isn't going to have the time to go and take that one. So very logical move. How does Wesley keep the attack going? And he's back in the tank again.
Just a strong move, because now he is offering a trade of rooks at some point. He remains a pawn ahead. And Wesley says, I can't hold back any longer. Let me take that bishop. The knight on F1 has to take back. So for Arjun, it's a bit confusing to me, because he either can throw in an exchange of rooks or just take back the knight with his knight. Of course, knight takes knight seems like the most obvious choice. So what is he really thinking about? Yeah,
he eventually makes that decision. And now a bit of calculation to be done, because one of the knights has disappeared. It was temporarily a couple of bishops against a couple of knights. Normally you favour the bishops, but Black's a pawn down, had to do something concrete. And he's banking on the fact that White's king, maybe on the back rank, might face some problems. And you don't really want to recapture this bishop ever with a pawn. You wreck your own structure.
But it looks like, David, we're going to have a forced sequence of moves now, because with these trades now, you don't want to capture that bishop with the pawn. If you do that, then black picks up the rook on d1, and, well, you watch out for that rook on 8, but the rook can go back to d8 and you're fine. The e3 pawn is also a weakness. You've kind of destroyed your own pawn structure. So with that, White has to trade... Oh, wow, I was just going to say White has to trade the rooks first, but instead Arjun says none of that, because that would just lead to a lot of trades and no chances for White. He does go for this ugly-looking pawn structure, but keeps pieces on the board.
Yeah, you predicted it again by accident that time, Tanya. Well done. I hope you really did buy a lottery ticket after yesterday. And meanwhile, now we're predicting the black rook to drop back. Wesley pauses. Is he really considering a queen trade right now? It would be up his alley. It would be his style. But he is a pawn down. So dropping the queen back, pretty much forcing the queens to come off, is a potential option. What do you think, Robert?
Great choice for Wesley. And when he pauses, that's when I start thinking what I initially am anticipating is probably wrong. So I think he is going to slide the queen back, because the queens have to come off after queen d8. Once those queens are off the board, the a2 pawn can actually be captured. With queens on, with heavy pieces there, that pawn... Once you capture, your bishop can get trapped. Now the black rook is looking to slide into d2 with activity along that file. The pawns in the center for White are very ugly. And the knight on g3 has nowhere to go because the bishop on e6 is perfectly placed. So, wow, actually, Wesley decides to keep even more material off on the board, and he gives him a rook.
That's a sacrifice. He's just... I think he's forced to draw. This is just incredible.
Wow.
We were assuming he had to defend his rook, move his rook, or swap the queens. He says, no, just take my rook, please. He moves out of check, and that's a mark of genius, Wesley. So if rook takes rook now, queen takes pawn, and there's not that many squares for the king to go to. You can't go towards the centre. Whoops. Suddenly a check from the bishop. And...
Oh, sorry, that was on.
Oh, that was the analysis board. Sorry. This would be a blunder. I agree, Kaya. Just to show what White shouldn't do. But if you go the other way, if you go to the side with your king, the black queen drops back with a check. And either you allow a repetition, which doesn't suit the match situation for Arjun Erigaisi, or you have to throw a knight in the way. But you might well regret this after queen takes knight. If you do start retreating with the king, for example, the pawn will move. Whoops, checkmate is going to come. 2 threats here. You can go forward with your king, maybe, but black's attack will continue. The white queen is so far away. Remember, we've mentioned this. When a queen is divorced from a king, your king will get attacked, and devastating threats on the board.
But basically, it's super easy for Arjun to go wrong here.
Yes.
This is a mark of genius. What Wesley has done, just moving that king forward, calculating this line, this is why Wesley is one of the best players in the world. And once you're behind in a match, it is impossible to come back in it with this guy. I mean, look at this move, king g7, calculating it till the end. Look at Wesley right now. He knows it, that he's got this in the bag.
Brilliant game.
Brilliant.
Seriously brilliant from start to finish, because it seemed like he was out of his book early. The preparation was up Arjun's alley. It was a dynamic game, and yet here we are saying the only choice for White that doesn't lose on the spot, allows a draw by forced repetition. Arjun, he was going to look for something. He knows he doesn't have anything. Wesley So just earned himself a spot to face off against
Does he only have one move now, Arjun?
He only has one move, and it's the move we were showing. Even in that variation, it's nothing more than a draw for White at maximum. Rook takes rook is the only move not to resign right now. It's obvious he will play this one after a bit of thought, but it's sinking in now, Arjun Erigaisi. After rook takes rook, as we showed, queen takes pawn, forces the king to the side of the board. The queen will yo-yo between the h6 square and the e3 square, and it's just going to be a draw.
Well, there's one more move that Arjun does have, but unfortunately for him, it doesn't work, David. If you just bring up the live board one more time, White can throw in a check with the knight on h5 in the current position, just to distract that queen from that e3 pawn. But it is, the geometry just doesn't work out for White, because black simply snaps up the knight. If you pick up the rook, you might think you won an exchange, but that g pawn marches on the board, g3. You're threatening queen h2, and very importantly, the rook on d1 hangs as well. And in fact, black is the one who comes on top after this.
Yeah, black will be winning if Arjun tries to keep the game going, and simply nothing else to be done. Poor Arjun. He's played a good game. He prepared really, really well, but just genius from Wesley So to shut this one down and force the draw with the aid of a rook sacrifice. Just incredible stuff. King g7.
been a Wesley So match. Game 1, it was a position where he was slightly better pressing. He was able to convert that into a full point. Here in Game 2, he showcases his excellent preparation. It seemed like only Arjun knew what he was doing, but Wesley just was slowing down because of how dangerous the position gets if you don't play the accurate response. And we're talking about Wesley So here, maybe the most accurate player in history, among the best for sure, and he just does not make mistakes very often. That's why throughout the year so far, he's lost practically no games. In classical chess, he had 2 wins and all the rest draws in Top to Steel. In Title Tuesday, he drew a couple games, won all the rest. Against Hikaru Nakamura, they drew all 5 games, but he had the white pieces in the Armageddon. And now against Arjun Erigaisi, the only player who has beaten Magnus Carlsen here in the Airthings Master, it's just a Wesley So show.
And look at him. He's such a humble guy, Wesley So, but sitting there just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure, once it looks like this is going to be over really soon. When he does join us, I know he's going to have a lot of good words for Arjun to say. Very encouraging, always to the younger generation. Wesley So is perhaps probably the kindest top 10 players in the world. He's number 1. He's 2900 when it comes to just being a nice guy. He's Mr. Nice Guy.
He rarely engages in the trash talk that we see between top players from time to time. And Arjun, we mentioned the sponsorship deal. He's been so good this last 12 months, but he'll learn from this match and he'll move on and he'll learn. He'll take a lot of tips from it, just from how Wesley's guided this game to safety, won the last one. Impressive stuff by both players, I've got to say.
Guys, we've seen so many amazing games so far, but I have to say for me, King G7 is perhaps the most stunning move.
Wow.
In the whole event so far. I mean, it's just such a little move, so unexpected. We were looking at the rook retreating, the queen blocking the check, but Wesley here just moves the king up, has calculated this till the end. It's just aesthetically so pleasing to end the game like this.
Yeah, some people ask me, what separates the very best from the rest of us, even from other very strong grandmasters, what separates the real elite? And it's moves like that, when you just have the presence of mind to stop, to realize there are alternatives, not just to play the most obvious moves. A lot of us, we don't have that impulse control. We just play moves because they look like they're forced or they look natural. But these top players, they have this other dimension. And they see things like this. They have the imagination to see these tactics. And he's followed through. It's going to be a draw.
And it's often said against Magnus Carlsen, if you don't draw immediately when the draw is kind of offered, not by his hand, but by the position, if you don't make it, you are likely to lose. And that's what Wesley So just did. He figured, I can make a draw on the spot. That way I don't get in any danger. And Arjun, he's throwing all his pieces forward, but his king is the one who's about to be hunted. Wesley So is not worried about the queen and the rook lining up right now. His queen can venture into H2, go down to the corner, give some checks, win some material. But the one but in this position is if you allow that white king to escape, then the extra material can make its presence felt, especially with the queen and the rook lined up towards the black king.
Yeah, so let's try to find the checkmate. The bar has gone all the way in Black's favour now. Black is winning. Arjun, he didn't want the draw. He's falling on his own sword here. But how does Black get there? Does the check do the business? It looks like the evaluation bar reacts to that. So the most obvious move, still good for Black, still good enough for Wesley. Here I was going to suggest maybe a bishop check being one of the options. You could give another queen check as well. Still looks very, very good for Black. But maybe there's something even more effective. I think Wesley will jump in with the queen just because it looks so direct. You can grab a few pawns. I don't think the white king can run away far enough from the checks. You get minimum a draw, and that's good enough for Wesley. But maybe there's something better. Is it to do with stopping some of these checks, preempting some of these checks? What do we think here in the studio?
I think we've got a move already.
Yeah,
he has given a check on H2,
and
the king has moved to F1. Yeah, it's absolutely tempting to pick up this G2 pawn with the check as well. You can always push that F5 pawn. The only threat that white has is the rook jumping onto G8 to give a check. So this is always an option to keep things under control.
Mm-hmm. Looks very classy, that one. And White's queen is so far away, she's unable to ride to the rescue. And again, I would be just restraining myself. I would be wanting to give a check with the queen or with the bishop to the white king just to follow. OK, there we go. I was going to say, well, let's follow through this variation. But the king moves. Yes, we just take another pawn. The king can run, but we continue checking it. And it's not going to run far enough to save this game for
white. I don't see a mate, though, David. Do you see a mate here?
I don't see a mate, but the problem is if I keep checking you, anytime you drop back with the rook, I can just move my queen and this pawn. OK, the evaluation bar doesn't like what I'm doing, but there will be more accurate moves than this.
Yeah, you could take the rook.
Oh, wow, Rob.
Ooh, that's a nice line.
And there we go. Black makes a new queen. And this is the only way that Arjun couldn't avoid the draw.
We're seeing this being played out, by the way. Exactly the line that you called. The king is on c2 right now, so a check on f2 or e2 by the queen, and then this queen sack. That will be stunning.
Yeah, that will be stunning. Maybe white can pick up a few pawns in that variation. Wow, we accidentally predicted the whole future, that whole sequence of moves.
You're the prophet now in the house.
I think we all need a pat on the back for that one, especially Robert, when queen takes rook happens in a moment. Arjun has nothing else to do. He will drop back his rook if he wants to keep this game going. But then we'll see that nice little trick from Wesley. And,
I am a little confused because the bar is in the middle here. So is this genius by Wesley getting the draw he needs to go through?
Yes.
Or can he win this game?
Well, he could have won, but he sees a draw and he knows that's enough for him to get through. So it seemed that he could have pushed his pawn next to his king just to take away the white threat of bringing the rook down the last rank. But we see he's moving his queen back and forth, and he has secured the draw at minimum. If Arjun tries to avoid the draw, he just loses. So I think it's just smart match play from Wesley So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen it from Wesley before. He's very practical. If there's even 1% risk in another variation, he won't choose it if he can find an alternative that removes any doubt whatsoever. And now we see the position repeat itself.
We have it.
There we go.
And that's it. Arjun had no option.
It's over. Wesley So takes the match. He goes through to face Hikaru Nakamura in the losers final to start in 10 minutes. And look at that confident face of Wesley So. How impressed are you with him after this match, Robert?
Just typical chess player.
Yeah.
You know what he's doing right now? He's looking over that game, seeing if there are any improvements. But it was a perfect demonstration by him withstanding the pressure out of the opening, playing every accurate move, and then going after his enemy king. Wesley So is a monster, and he's earned himself a spot in Division 1, the next event that comes around. So he's just thriving in the Champions Chess Tour.
Yep. There is no doubt now. We definitely will see Wesley So, Hikaru Nakamura, and Magnus Carlsen, because they will be top 3 in Division 1 in the Airthings Masters. They have qualified for Division 1 in the next event. But who's going to win the tournament? We don't know that yet. The grand final is tomorrow, and it's going to be either Wesley So or Hikaru Nakamura to face Magnus Carlsen. The losers final will start now in a little less than 10 minutes, and Wesley So will be going into that against Hikaru Nakamura with a bunch of confidence after this game, David.
Yeah, an incredible game to finish off that match. And commiserations to Arjun Erigaisi. He'll be back, he'll be stronger. But today he ran into Wesley So in beast mode. And it was this position. Wesley initiated a trade of rooks. He captured the white rook. White recaptured with a nasty check. And here in the studio, we were predicting a block. There's 2 sensible ways to block this check. You can retreat your rook and force the white queen away, or you can force a trade of queens going into a very respectable endgame by sliding back. But of course, Wesley had seen one step further. He'd seen a third option, and he simply moved his king. This relies on a tactic after rook takes rook, that after queen check, the white king cannot escape. Instead, we saw Arjun almost fall on his sword there. He gave away a knight. He was actually losing the game, but just trying to preserve some winning chances. Wesley, however, didn't allow any of that. A draw, and he moves on.
We're joined by Arjun Erigaisi, who's given it an amazing fight in the Airthings Master, but now knocked out. How are you, Arjun?
Hi. Good. It was a great match. I think both games were pretty close. In retrospect, maybe I should have just taken a draw in the first game. And second one, I think I basically thought after the test given queen 8, he's forced to go back, but I forgot that he can move again.
Yeah, and what a game, that second game by Wesley, where he only needed the draw. You were in that must-win. What was your reaction when Wesley played, was it king to g7?
Yeah, at that point I realized I messed up and I thought a draw is inevitable. And I just went for this pretty much out of desperation, but that didn't help either.
Arjun, you put up a really brave fight today. One of the big highlights in this event has been that you are the only player so far who has defeated Magnus here. That must be a special takeaway from this one?
Yes, definitely the match against Magnus was great. The few previous matches that I played with him were all ended in 3 games. So I was quite happy that it went all the way to Armageddon.
Yeah. And Arjun, what's coming up next for you now? What's your plans in the near future?
Oh, honestly, I have no idea. I have nothing planned until April, May, so I have to see.
All right. Well, we hope to see you in the next event in the Champions Chess Tour. Thank you so much for all the entertainment and for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Arjun. And we're actually also joined by Wesley So, who is very shortly going to start the losers final against Hikaru. But congratulations on winning the match against Arjun, Wesley.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. I'm happy to still be in the tournament, and I mean, there are a zillion rules for this year's Champions Chess Tour, but I think I qualify for next for April, right?
Yeah. You are now guaranteed Division 1 in the next event. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's huge. So that's exactly what I was fighting for today. Not necessarily the prize, but to have to avoid doing the play-ins because it's very tough. Also, I'm going to Germany on tomorrow. We're leaving for Germany, and I'm playing 2 tournaments there. One is in Dusseldorf, one is Berlin, and our ticket is scheduled to go back on March 13, which is the exact day of the play-in. So I really wanted to avoid that one.
Ah, that's nice.
But it's big. Winning today against Arjun was big.
Yeah, and what a match you played, especially that second game. That King G7 move. Our experts in the studio are saying it's one of the best moves of the tournament. How happy are you with your play in that game?
Yeah, King G7, King H7 also draws. I actually didn't see King G7 until he took my rook because I was gonna play Queen D8 and go to an endgame, and but King moving the king forces the draw right away. So was very pleased. I mean, it can't necessarily be the best move because the prettiest move because it only makes a draw. But actually, the way Arjun played in the end turns out Black is winning. But I was very pleased because Arjun is an amazing player. I have a lot of respect for him. I think Fabiano Caruana also mentioned that out of all the Indian youngsters, seems Arjun has tons of potential, and he could possibly reach 2,800 one day. But it's nice. Also, he's a theoretician. Like, he's very good in the openings. So I'm very happy to do well in the opening against him today in both games. The second game, I was very happy. I was able to remember my preparation because I think I pretty much prepared it until move 24 or something like that, move 23. So I didn't have any problems there. But when he took the pawn c6, I spent a long time considering bishop d7, queen c7, knight h5, knight f1, but I didn't see anything. But after bishop e6, turns out Black has absolutely no problems. So that was all nice because whenever White plays this Italian with bishop g5, the position gets very complex and Black has to remember a lot of things. It's dangerous for both colors. And the first game was also very interesting with rook on d5. I think he made a slight mistake with bishop takes knight early on. I think the bishop on f6 was very well placed. And then later on, I think he should have just taken the draw and repeated moves. So it was very risky for Black to keep playing. And I was just trying to find the right time to break with f4. And so both games were very interesting. There were a lot of things to discuss, and there were a lot of crucial moments. But it's nice.
Yeah.
Wesley, congratulations on winning this game. And now there's a big final coming up in your bracket. And just really quickly, maybe you can tell us, how are you looking at this matchup against Hikaru in this one?
He beat me two days ago. Yeah. He's probably the favorite because he's very good at this time control, this format. Hopefully I can do better this time. I'm not sure what his strategy will be, but for the last 2 matches against Magnus and myself, he was taking it to the Armageddon, which I think is a very good match strategy. So we'll see if he does the same thing today. But
Do you want to avoid the Armageddon against Hikaru, Wesley? Or is that a good match strategy for you as well?
Yeah, to be honest, I would prefer to avoid it. I mean, as the time control gets shorter and shorter, his advantage gets bigger and bigger, so preferable to avoid it. But in my match against him 2 days ago, I didn't really had anything substantial. I'll just give my best. I'm just happy to qualify for on the April event, and hopefully I can put a good fight against Hikaru. Certainly trying to play some good chess.
We're looking forward to it, Wesley. It starts in only a few minutes. We really appreciate you stopping by and talking to us before this match against Hikaru. Good luck.
Yeah, wish me well.
Yeah, all the
Good luck,
best,
Wesley.
all the best, Wesley. All right.
Thank you. And also, Robert, I want to say thank you for the good collaboration in the Olympiad a few months ago. And we'll win the next one.
All right, Wesley. Well, we'll see how you do next, but congratulations so far, and thank you for those kind words.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Bye.
Wesley So is getting ready for the big losers final against Hikaru Nakamura, the winner of that match. Will make it through to tomorrow's grand final to face Magnus Carlsen. How cool that he actually stopped by and talked to us before it starts.
He's such a nice guy. Like,
Yeah.
of course, I was the coach of the U.S. team at the Olympiad, and so we worked together a bit, and he didn't have to just, say that to me, but he's always just so, kind, and he always wishes the best for everybody, but he can't wish the best for Hikaru. He has a lot of respect for him. We heard him say when the clock ticks down is when Hikaru's at his best, so I think we're going to see a fighting Wesley So in the best of 2 rapid games here.
Oof, it's going to be intense. It starts in a few minutes. If you're not a subscriber on Twitch, we're going to send you now to a Twitch break before it starts. It's an intense format this season on the Champions Chess Tour. Wesley So only has a few minutes to get ready for another match. The losers final is best out of 2 games, and if they are tied, then it will be decided in Armageddon. Hikaru Nakamura is in there because he lost yesterday's winners final against Magnus Carlsen. And Wesley predicted, David, that Hikaru wants to take this to Armageddon. What do you think? What will this match be like?
It's so hard to call, Kaya. Both of them are unbeaten. We can't forget that. Neither of them have been hit in this tournament, and just that one match between them was decided by Armageddon. It was so close. Hikaru got black in that, which was decisive eventually. I still think Armageddon is 50-50. It's about who gets the black pieces. It's about the psychology of the bidding war. And I do have a feeling that will decide it. It's just too hard to separate them.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask Wesley what his strategy is going to be in terms of bidding, if he learned anything from Magnus yesterday and his own bidding against Hikaru the day before. But I felt he might answer the question, and that's bad for his match strategy. I didn't want Hikaru to listen and hear it. So Wesley, being such a kind person, he wouldn't have left me on red. So I feel like, it's better not to ask him to let his actions do the talking.
Yeah, and he did say he wants to avoid the Armageddon. Wesley So. Let's take a look at the bracket. This is day 4 in the Airthings Masters. We started out with quarterfinals on Monday. 4 players made it through to the winners semifinals, and 4 players were knocked down to the losers bracket. We did have a winners final yesterday between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus Carlsen won that in a dramatic Armageddon to make it through to tomorrow's grand final. We will now follow the losers final between Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So. Best out of 2 rapid games with 15 minutes plus 3 seconds increment. And if they are tied, it will go down to Armageddon. So, Tanya, what do you think Hikaru has been doing today? Do you think he's been following Wesley? Do you think he's been preparing? What has Hikaru been up to?
You mean if he's not been streaming?
or maybe he has been streaming.
Maybe he's been streaming. I think, but if he's not, he's definitely been keeping an eye on that match and thinking about his own strategy as well. Hikaru would love a rematch against Magnus, but of course, so would Wesley. We've been talking about how this double elimination bracket is such a good showcase for the best players to show their ability. And here we've got the three favorites who've actually, the heavyweights who've qualified for the next tournament, and the fight is amongst them. Magnus, Hikaru, and Wesley. This is what we dream of from a tournament. I think Wesley made a really good point. By the way, I want to say that I can't imagine any other chess player doing what he did. To just come and talk so openly about the match that he had, but also his outlook towards what's coming up. It was just incredible to get his thoughts. So much appreciated. And I think what he said, that he wants to avoid the Armageddon, I think that makes sense for Wesley.
Yeah.
Wesley will try and settle this one in the rapid.
All right. Ooh. They have faced each other a bunch of times. Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So both playing for the US. It is in favor of Hikaru. Does that mean he's also a favorite in this match, Robert?
Well, lately it's turned around in Wesley's favor. We did see Hikaru take him down in Armageddon the other day, but that global championship that earned Wesley his spot through to Division 1 in the Airthings Masters, that was won on the biggest stage by Wesley So. That was an 8-game match, 5-3 in Wesley's favor. He's proven that he can take down Hikaru. History says Hikaru is the favorite. Wesley says Hikaru is the favorite. But today is a new day, and maybe Wesley can come with his best stuff and take down Hikaru like he has in the past.
Yeah, he's definitely coming with confidence after some fantastic play against Arjun Erigaisi. Hikaru Nakamura is ready. And what do you think, David? What do you expect from the first game?
Well, it looks like Hikaru's starting with white, despite him being called Wesley So.
Wesley looks different right
now. Talking of great hair quality, Hikaru looks slick, gotta say.
I agree.
But yeah, we're off. It's E4, E5. It's a Spanish, I'm guessing, just judging from recent history between these two. But okay, actually, wow, Hikaru's black. We got that one a bit wrong. So I was going to say, if Hikaru starts with the white pieces, he has the advantage. But no, it's the Italian game. This is what Wesley has been going to. It's his go-to opening. Of course, we saw him on the black side of this opening in the last game between him and Arjun. But yeah, this has still been seen before between these two giants.
And really interesting here that Wesley actually switches it up. Now, he played the Spanish against Arjun when he started with the white pieces, and now he starts with the Italian because he's pretty clear. Hikaru's been watching that match, so Hikaru would have been prepared to face that. He goes for the Italian, but of course, that said, Italian is no big surprise for Hikaru. That is another opening that he was expecting. Very important that this is just a 2-game match. So once again, the result of this is going to be critical. Hikaru will try to neutralize Wesley's advantage of having the white pieces. And look at this. He goes for a very dynamic idea of hitting that F2 weakness, moves the king, sidesteps with the king, and the whole plan for black here is to get that F5 break in, David. You want to strike in the center. You want to open it up with F5. One gets the feeling. Kaya, you were asking, what has Hikaru been up to so far this morning? I think he's been looking at this line.
Okay.
And this is really positive for us as fans because Wesley, first of all, avoided the Spanish, therefore avoiding the Berlin Wall, therefore avoiding a quick draw. So he's showing his aggressive intentions. He wants to win with white, and Hikaru avoiding what he went for 2 days ago against Wesley, this maybe solid but passive approach which did lead to a couple of draws. I'm slightly surprised to see the Black Knight retreat in this fashion. I thought it was going back another way, just to show Tanya's point there. Black did have a very aggressive approach available to him if he had retreated the knight to a different square. It does look odd. We say knights on the rim are dim. This knight can also be eliminated by a white bishop, but that will come at the cost of the bishop pair. The most important idea here is to throw this pawn forward, blast open a file, because we've talked about this bishop in the previous game. Same opening, remember. This bishop extremely strong on the diagonal, so why not open up a rook towards this target on f2 as well? This would be a really committal decision. Hikaru says no, he goes back in the other direction, and after Wesley develops, don't be surprised if Hikaru at some point moves this knight again, just to get that pawn moving, getting the rook motoring behind it. But now it's back to a more maneuvering battle, perhaps after this last couple of turns.
But it feels like white was handed a couple free turns, right? Because you went knight out to g4 and then knight back. h3, that pawn push for white, is a move you want to play anyway. Black put the king in the corner to play f5, and now can't play f5 because the knight's in the way. So this seems like something went wrong for Hikaru in the opening. Not that he's that much worse in the current position, but even his facial expression was like, what's going on here? And he didn't go for the most testing, at least the most tactical possibility. Instead, he drops back, and Wesley should be slightly better. The rook on a2 later can slide even towards the center, or you can double on the queen side if you feel that you can open up the position. I like the start of this game for Wesley So.
Yeah, and one thematic plan would be to drop the white knight back and reroute it to a very solid square in front of the white king. Looks really nice for white, you've got to say. Hikaru, if he has slipped up in the move order in the opening, he would just be like the rest of us. The number of times I've messed up the move order in the Italian game from the white side, from the black side, I mean, I can't count. It's just too many. It's so hard to understand all these little differences, these little nuances. But looks good for Wesley. He has dropped his knight back.
It's a bit strange to see because Hikaru made his intention so clear with that king move and the knight jumped forward that he wanted to blast open with that f-pawn, but then coming in the way of his own plan with this knight retreat. Slightly strange decisions there, and now he takes a think. Now, you were mentioning this is a thematic idea. What black also can do in these positions is to challenge that light squared bishop that white has on c4, making a developing move himself, bishop to e6, because what you really want to do, what you wanted to do with that pawn push that we were talking about, is open up the f-file. So at the cost of even doubling up your pawns, let's say after that bishop trade, David, if the bishop was to land on e6, and white was to trade these bishops, you're happy with this pawn structure because you managed to open up that f-file.
Yep, your rook is open and you do have extra central support. These pawns might look a bit ugly, they might look a bit weak long term, but for now they control all of these central squares. So that will be the most logical move in this position, I feel, but slightly inconsistent perhaps with his previous few turns. And Hikaru thinking, the time issue, not so drastic yet, but he needs to come up with a plan. If not going for this bishop trade, he might well find himself cramped. I don't see what else he would be doing here.
I think I understand where Hikaru went wrong. We're talking about kind of subtleties in the opening and when we make inaccuracies. If we just go back to the moment before Wesley went b4, just very quickly, a very common move is that knight going up to a3 instead of the pawn push to b4. And now after knight g4, white has to slide the rook up to e2 to defend the f2 pawn, and the king slides to the corner like Hikaru did in the game. And after h3, I'm pretty sure there's a move f5. So tactically, it's just a wild position. And I think that this is in preparation still, where black gets the open file and creates an attack. So I think that Hikaru maybe mixed up his lines, didn't realize that once Wesley pushed the pawn on the queen side, it opened up the second rank for his other rook, his more passive rook. And that is what has led Wesley to get the upper hand in the opening, because Hikaru had to backtrack. It wasn't the end of the world, but it's a clear plus in my eyes, in my estimation, for Wesley So.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks vaguely symmetrical right now, especially with these knights, these two proud black knights mirroring the white counterparts. But this black king in the corner isn't necessarily that well placed, and white is the first one to break in the center, either now or maybe on the next move. First, you could just slide back with your bishop, make sure there's no attacks against it. This is a very typical idea. I've had it myself plenty times against Fallujah, for example. But next, white will just occupy the center. And what does black do in the meantime? The reason I say the black king isn't actually well placed in the corner is because you want to centralize your rook. You often want to move your rook here, but suddenly this pawn would be loose. So it feels like not just has Hikaru lost two moves, but he's given white moves for free. He's given white plenty of options. And okay, Wesley doesn't go for that. Instead, he brings his queen to this square, highlighting the fact that this f7 pawn isn't defended sufficiently.
And now that other plan that we were talking about has also been snatched away from Hikaru. No more neutralizing this light square bishop by offering a trade. The queen on b3 doesn't only hit the f7 pawn, but also stops any future trades or development. Well, one of the things that black can do to insist on that is move the queen one step ahead, queen to e7. You defend that f7 pawn. You're also in the future wanting to really trade off these bishops because it is the key in white's position. It is really one of the strongest minor pieces that white has. So bishop e6 has to, I feel, David, arrive on the board at some point.
Yeah, this does, however, give Wesley one move to open up to control the center, and this would be slightly awkward for black, potentially. Yes, you can still offer a trade, but maybe some different consequences. Hikaru chooses a different square. Let's wait to see the fallout from that one, but it looks like the same idea.
It's the same idea, but a nice subtlety, because I just realized that after queen e7, there was a nasty little move that white had, which could be the knight jump to f5. You hit that queen on e7, and usually black wants to trade these knights, but take a look at the position that we have. Bishop f5, ef5, and now because of the king on the square that it is, the queen on the square that it is, the knight on g6 is actually trapped. You can't jump it to f4, because then white just picks up that knight, and watch out for that pin along the e file. You can't recapture it, and I think that's why precision here by Hikaru choosing the E8 square.
Yeah, very nice. So he's created an escape route for his knight, also hinting that he might throw this pawn forward to try and trap this white bishop. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Wesley either takes a time out to prevent that idea by pushing his pawn forward, allowing en passant if b5 ever happens, or goes for a central break. Let's allow Wesley some time to think of that decision. How about you guys? I know the Italian game is maybe the opening I struggle with most in terms of memory, in terms of understanding the ideas. What are your least favourite openings?
The London system and the French defense. I had those ready.
Thought I'd make you pause for thought, Robert.
Why don't you like those openings?
Actually, the London system for the same reason, I think maybe David in the Italian, because if we look at the current position, not a single piece has been traded, not one. And so you're kind of just maneuvering around, trying to find the best squares, and then you don't know, is it too soon to push a pawn? Is that going to create a weakness? And Wesley did just push his pawn in this position, trying to open up the board for his pieces. He is a bit ahead in terms of space and development, but that's why I don't like the London. The French, your bishop is terrible. It's buried behind the pawns. The light square bishop for black is just a miserable piece, and I can never back the French defense, even though, yes, I have played it before. I used against Vichy on it.
I feel like the Italian, I don't mind playing against it, but the London I absolutely hate. And the reason for that is that I think it's the kind of opening that you don't expect will ever be dangerous for you. But then somehow it always goes wrong. I have the worst score against London. I probably shouldn't be saying this aloud. It is true.
Future opponents are preparing right now against Tanya.
All right. Well, you did see something cool on the screen just now. The tournament trophy. Every tournament will have a, look at that. How nice is that? Every tournament will have a unique NFT trophy by a unique artist. And you can actually get this trophy. It's up for bidding on chesschamps.io, or you can use the QR code, scan that with your phone, and go in and make your bid for that very cool trophy.
Wait, so I can bid for the trophy?
Yeah.
It looks like it's from the new Harry Potter game or something. Yeah, it looks really cool.
It's like the Quidditch Cup.
Are you a Harry Potter fan?
Loosely, not really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like the Tri-Wizard trophy. That was the one. Oh, sorry, not that I'm...
Tri-Wizard Cup.
Yesterday was Pokemon. Today was...
Cedric Diggory over there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, if I die.
I think everyone knows that now.
Yeah.
If you haven't read, that's on you if you haven't read Harry Potter.
Exactly, right. If you haven't seen or read Harry Potter by now, well, you should.
Was it in the first book that they had to play a chess game to...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And Magnus Carlsen remembers every move in that chess game. We tested him in that one.
We tested him, and I just put a position on the board. I was like, what's this from? And he guessed it was Harry Potter, and he was like, okay, the knight moved here. That means the knight must be Ron. The queen, must be this one. And Harry must have been the bishop to deliver checkmate. And yeah, another level of brainy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, another level of memory.
Wizard chess. And is there anything magical about this position that we are seeing right now after 18 moves in the first game here?
I'm not sure magical's the word, but at least Wesley's gaining space, pushing forward with his pawns. I slightly prefer the white position. What about you guys?
I think, yes, white has space, but that's so typical and classical of the Italian opening that white does manage to get this control over the center. We see it also in Spanish that white has the space advantage. What black really wants to do to neutralize that is exactly what Hikaru is doing. Try and trade off as many pieces. The less pieces on the board, the less you'll feel cramped, because when you're behind on space, you don't have that much, those many squares to jump around with your own army. So you really want to try and minimize that lack of, not having fresh air, at least on the board. And look at this last move of Hikaru hinting at exactly that. He moves the bishop as well out of the way and wants to get a rook trade in as well.
If those rooks leave the board on the open A file, I don't feel that Wesley has enough ammunition to really cause problems for Hikaru. Yeah, it definitely feels like every trade that happens, the closer black gets towards the desired result, towards equality. Do you see anything here, Robert, that Wesley can try to keep some tension, keep some hopes?
I think he's going to have to trade at least one pair of rooks along the A file, and maybe he's going to have to go after the C7 pawn. His queen is in line with that pawn. The F7 pawn we've talked about because the king stepped to the corner. That means the rook needs to stay with its attention on it. So it's going to be a fight for the only open file. Rooks need open lines. It's about that A file. So if Wesley can make use of that, he should be the side with the advantage. I also like that his queen is the more active of the two. But I just want to give Hikaru some credit really quickly because he slipped in the opening. I really do think that he misremembered his lines. Not that it was a too terrible a position, but it was worse for him, and he just makes these good moves quickly after that. So I'm very impressed by the way this position has turned from one that looked clearly better for Wesley to just kind of like, this might be a handshake soon.
Yeah, at least a small strategic threat potentially of capturing a pawn because, for example, if black plays a lazy move, a quiet move, actually maybe not that one, but after a trade of pawns, then suddenly white could double up the black pawns on the b file by capturing this bishop. The reason I say not that one is because suddenly actually the black queen is quite well placed. A queen trade would be comfortable here for black. It's just really weird. I always find it awkward as well in this opening how the knights just stare down at each other. It's never clear which one you can move. It's like a kind of stare-off between them. I can't move my knights because my pawns might drop. You can't move your knights because your pawns might drop. And it's just, yeah, they cancel each other out. So in this position, not too much to worry about for black.
But with this last move, bishop to e3, as you're pointing out, in this current position, at least white's knights are just slightly better than black's knights. And the reason I say that is, David, because look at that f5 square. The white knight can actually jump to that square, and because the light square bishops have been traded off, there is no piece to challenge that. Meanwhile, black's knight on g6 doesn't have that freedom. It doesn't have that flexibility yet to arrive on f4 because of that bishop on e3, which is why I think the bishop trades in the line that you were pointing out would actually be great for black, because then black also gets the option to jump in with the knight. And I like your idea of putting that queen on c8. It's a strange move and a strange square because you're also giving up the a file at some point, but it's sort of prophylactic. It's looking into the future and saying, you know what, this is what you want, but on my terms.
Yeah, I must admit here, Tanya, I was showing this as an example of a bad move, and then suddenly I accidentally stumbled across maybe one of the most logical. And yeah, exactly, Hikaru Nakamura here. He's got a bunch of options. You can't move this rook because it's side down defending a pawn. You don't really want to move these knights. You don't want to move your bishop. You could make an argument for moving the king back, but then you feel a bit silly having lost a couple of moves, having put it in the corner earlier. So process of elimination, this is what I do a lot in chess. If I don't know what to look for, then I just look at all my pieces. I talk to you. No, none of you can move apart from the queen. So I'm expecting the queen to get busy and maybe just slide across. You could make an argument for jumping in, but OK, Hikaru goes all the way back with his queen where she came from. Very solid square and just very solid position for both.
And the reason that he's done that is because the queen from e8 is actually eyeing that b pawn as well. So right now, all these trades that we were pointing out, the queen on e8 will do a good job of not only hitting the b5 pawn, but also the central e4 pawn. So a nice square. And once again, the ball is in Wesley's court. Robert, what do you trade off on e5, hoping to get the bishops off and try and destroy black's pawn structure?
I feel like Wesley's the type of player who just maneuvers around a bunch. He finds just these little improving moves. It's kind of Karpovian. Anatoly Karpov, the former world champion, was well regarded for his ability in very locked positions just to reroute his pieces. So I feel like Wesley, he thrives in that situation. If he feels like he has absolutely nothing, he can just swap the pieces off and say, I'm ever so slightly better. Take that as a bit of a mental edge. But I do feel like this position is so solid for Hikaru. He made this last move, queen to e8. He just shoring up his position, and as Tanya said, eyeing that b5 pawn in case the white queen has any funny ideas. So I don't really see too much in the way of an advantage for white anymore with the liquidation, with the pieces getting traded. I think that makes Hikaru's task more and more simple.
Yeah, I just love what Hikaru's done. He's defended everything. He's just locked things down. He's especially with this last move, he said, OK, no threats for you, no promising captures for you. You find a plan, you burn time on the clock trying to solve all these problems, or at least trying to create something out of nothing. And I'll just sit here happily, wait for you to make that decision. And then I'll pounce, and then I'll counter if you go wrong. And that's why he wins so many blitz, rapid tournaments. That's why he's so good at speed chess, Hikaru, because he nearly never blunders, but he always pounces when he gets a chance. And he gets these positions where he's ready to react. It's a very reactive style, but a very effective style.
Remember, you can always reach us either on Twitter using the hashtag ChessChamps or in the Twitch chat. I see a bunch of comments coming in. Super nice to see that. If you do have any questions for our excellent experts here in the studio, then share them on Twitter or in the Twitch chat, and we'll bring up as many as we can.
You know, we've been discussing in this position the idea of white's knight actually jumping forward. And I think that is something that black needs to watch out for. But first, Wesley decides to sidestep with the queen to b4. And is he perhaps hinting at some kind of a pawn advance all the way up to c4 and then to c5, trying to block that bishop? Are there any tactical ideas along the a3, f8 diagonal? One can get the feeling that something is being set up here.
Yeah, something's being set up, but it's very mysterious, I've got to say, Tanya. And he played that move, Wesley. He kind of leaned back, shook his head, frowned for a second, and then recomposed himself. Yeah, I'm curious what the idea is as well. And maybe just positioning his queen on a slightly better square where it covers the dark squares. You mentioned this idea of pushing white's pawns forward. That's on the cards, certainly, but Hikaru just solidifies things even further. He's like a rock right now. How are you going to erode this structure for black? How are you going to break him down? I wouldn't want to have this position as white wanting to win. Of course, Wesley's not in that must-win situation, but Hikaru is so solid.
You called him a rock, so he's like onyx, is what you're saying. You need to find the water, just trying to get through here. But I see nothing. I mean, that move, knight d7, it makes sure that all of the bases are covered. Some of the earlier variations we were talking about was with a trade of the dark square bishops, black's queenside pawn structure could be shattered. Now the knight on d7 also protects that bishop just in case. And we see Wesley, he moves his knight back as well, and that's the benefit of his position. He has a little bit more space. That knight heading up the board to c4, a knight on d7, it's dominated by a pawn 3 squares away. I love to make mention of it, and it actually is important here that white is just a teeny bit more active. Tanya had been focusing on the knight on g3, which still can land on f5 at any given moment, but that knight that was on f3 slides back to d2, up to c4, and maybe that's the small benefit of Wesley's position, the small little nagging advantage that will cause Hikaru some trouble.
Ooh, knight's jumping all over the board. Look at that last move. Hikaru says, you go back with the knight, I come forward with mine. Knight to h4.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that does, but it does at least...
It does scare us a little bit.
It does scare us a little bit, and it does deter this idea of knight to f5 that will simply be traded off. I just love how Wesley's move, the queen b4 move earlier, vacated this c4 square. Really mysterious, but the idea was 2 or 3 moves, 2 or 3 play, as we say, just in the future. The knight now leaping forward. I'm expecting Wesley to play that very quickly. Why not? And at least pose a question to Hikaru. Here it's like onyx, bind, just create that bind. And yeah, hopefully, from Wesley's point of view, you don't allow black to break out. But of course, Hikaru will be waiting for that punch, like Hitmonchan, and just ready to... too many Pokemon references. I'll stop that now. But he'll be waiting to break out, punch his way out of this one if given the opportunity. Maybe the idea... He didn't get it in earlier, remember. He wanted to play for f5, but maybe it's on the cards. Either now or on the next few moves.
I would love to see f5 on the board. We've been talking about it since the start of the game, and even if it comes now, it will have big questions to Wesley. How is he going to respond in the center if this pawn break comes through? And knowing Hikaru, he's not going to shy away from it. That is exactly what he's thinking about. The pawn move all the way up 2 squares, hitting that e4 pawn. And Wesley, about 5 minutes. Yeah. And things are getting tricky, Kaya.
Ooh, but talking about big questions, we have a great question on Twitter from Matt asking, you guys, have the commentators played each other before?
Ooh.
Oh, we did actually, just a couple of days ago. We can talk about that for a while.
Didn't happen.
But have you played in like a tournament or something like that?
No.
Either of you?
No.
Really?
Yeah. Have you guys played against each other?
No.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't played in the US that much, I must say. In Isle of Man, Grand Swiss, we played in the same tournament. I think we even sat 2 boards apart once, but no, not against each other.
We dodged each other. That's why we remain on such good terms.
Oh, yeah. We need to make that happen. Or should we avoid it?
Well, I don't play very much, so I'm happy to not play chess. But I think that both Wesley, I mean, look at this position that we just had. We actually had a huge change because after the move f5, Wesley took that pawn. Hikaru did not take back. He instead brings his queen out. And now the question is, will Hikaru just regain that pawn? Will he be fine here? But I think that Wesley, he has an opportunity. There's a tactical shot. Look at that knight on h4. They say loose pieces drop off. There's a queen on b4, and there are many pieces in a row on that 4th rank. But if that knight takes the bishop first, we're about to see the line clear out, that the knight takes back for black, and then you push the pawn up to d5. That knight on h4 is under attack. The knight on b6 is under attack from the bishop. Things are getting spicy.
Wow, that's great full board vision, I've got to say, Robert. And it's not visually obvious at first, so it might take Wesley some time to spot. But this is really annoying. This knight is hit, of course. It can step back and recapture the pawn, regain the material balance. But after a bunch of trades, I'm not sure which one you take first. But for example, just this line, suddenly white is the only one who can win because you have the superior structure. Also, in positions where it's just major pieces, just the heavy pieces such as queens and rooks, pawn shelter is all important. And for example, white here can centralize defending this key f2 pawn from any threats. You have more shelter than the opponent, therefore you have the advantage. Also, easy targets on the queen side. This is really sneaky stuff, Robert. And if he finds it, it feels like Hikaru is on the back foot. Wesley will play a risk-free position, his dream, the style of chess he loves to play, and he might well get close to that win. I don't think Hikaru will be loving his position if that is played, but it's very difficult to see that you can kind of clear the whole fourth rank in one blow. And will he find it?
And then to be able to also evaluate that last position that we had on the board really offers big chances, because let's not forget, guys, that actually the next game, Hikaru starts with the white pieces. So if this one ends in a draw with everything being traded off and white isn't able to find something big in that position to really fight for, Hikaru, well, one, he can easily take it to the Armageddon, something that Wesley wants to avoid. And there we have it, Robert, your idea on the board. So Wesley not only having great board
and Hikaru
position,
missed it. Look at Hikaru's face.
Ooh, he turned out.
He looked to the side and he was, oh, what is that? And he realizes that now he is going to face a terrible ending. Well, queen and rook's on the board, but a horrible pawn structure. That was a missed shot from Hikaru.
Yeah, huge miss, and we're going to end up in that position we predicted, and it's only white who can win. Just take those knights off the board. I'm not sure if you have anything better here, but just lock it down. It's all about white in that position. More active queen, more active rook, better pawn structure, safer king, and if you're Wesley So, you will hope that all of those things add up to an advantage. Of course, the material is disappearing from the board. The drawing margins will be quite high in general, but it's all about Wesley So. And Hikaru, he was shocked, but he's recomposed himself. This is another thing that sets him apart at the very top of world chess. Him, Magnus Carlsen, Wesley, they all recover from setbacks so quickly. Even if they miss a move, they recover and they just continue playing chess.
He's so adaptive to these situations, and we have spoken about that before. That's one of his biggest strengths, is just how resourceful he is. He doesn't really dwell on what's happened for too long. That little head shake that we saw, and that's it. He's done with it. He's ready for this new position, this new challenge. But very impressive by Wesley to spot this idea, Robert, that you were mentioning, especially the geometry of the knight hanging on h4. And you call this action out. It is on the board. There's one thing that works in black's favor, is that the queen on f5 and the rook on f8, they do eye the f2 pawn as well as the other central pawn, which is a weakness. So black also has a few trumps. The one thing that black needs to watch out for in this position, with white's queen centralized, imagine if the rook joins the attack, goes all the way to the 7th rank, rook coming into e7, threatening a mate in 1 on g7, and you don't want to allow that.
Yeah. So there is at least one threat on the board. As Tanya points out, you don't have time to, for example, push a pawn because white's rook will land. And, of course, the checkmate threat, but also targets on the other flank. So I'm expecting Hikaru to do something quite energetic here. I'm not sure exactly what, to be honest, but he needs to do something now. The other potential threat will be taking this pawn if the black queen moves away. And, yeah, I wouldn't like to be Hikaru. He's looking really, really calm. It's like that Taylor Swift song, Just Shake It Off. He's shaking it off, and he's looking really relaxed. But I would be panicking, I've got to say, as black.
It looks fantastic for white, because a queen trade, that won't solve all of black's problems either. The pawn structure is so bad that white may be able to pick off the pawns or tie black's rook down in a resulting endgame to the defense of those pawns. That is not what you want. So that's what Hikaru is thinking about. Meanwhile, with the queens remaining on the board, Wesley may step up with his rook. Yes, rook e7 is an idea, but he can bring his rook to e6. He can bring it up to e4, push his pawn f2 to f3, and just cement the position. There are no weaknesses in white's camp, so I think that this is super unpleasant to play at the highest level, because Wesley So, he typically punishes people. Against Arjun Erigaisi, there was one mistake by Arjun down the stretch of the endgame. He made Arjun pay the full price. That full point was Wesley's. That's the reason he's here facing Hikaru.
Yeah.
And we would go on, David.
No, I was going to say, I love it, Robert. Just either one of these rook moves, rook e4, rook e6. Tanya, which one would you be?
I was thinking about the third one, about the idea that we were talking about, coming in for the mating threat with rook e7. But I think what Hikaru has in mind is to challenge that rook. You don't want it to stay alive for too long. Bring that rook up to f7, stop that mate, offer a rook trade, and this is how he plans to defend this position. If the rooks do get traded after rook f7, the queen picks it up. White's queen can pick up a pawn on the left side of the board, but then black gets a central pawn and everything is under control. And I was just thinking, you're absolutely right, that Hikaru looks like he has, in fact, shaken it off, as you said, because he believes that haters going to hate and players going to play.
He's feeling 22, just like the age Kaya turned today.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Oh, hi, I'm the problem. It's me. So, you know, we can all throw in our T-Swift references, but this just looks great for Wesley. I mean, there's no risk whatsoever. Whether he wins this game is another question, but he can push his pawns, he can bring his king up. The thing about this is that white is essentially up a pawn. Black has 2 B pawns. Both of them are stopped by 1 white pawn on B5. That's why we typically don't like double pawns. They're not the end of the world early stages, but in the end game, it's like you're just down a pawn despite the material equality. So this is what Wesley is hoping for, to move his pawns forward, bring his king up. But will it be enough? Because as soon as you push your pawns, your king gets exposed to a bunch of checks, and the black king is tucked away in the corner.
Yeah, and we should also mention that Wesley can try and bully Hikaru here with a threat of a queen exchange. If the queens ever disappear, white will be winning king and pawn endgames because, as Robert mentioned, that structure for black, those 2, I was going to say 2 become 1. They don't really become 1. Those 2 are cancelled out by the 1 on the B file. So definitely all about Wesley here. Can he finish it off? Can he convert this? Extremely difficult, but he'll be loving his position. This is right up his alley, as we mentioned. This is Wesley So's wheelhouse. This is what he loves to do, just grind down his opponents in risk-free positions.
Very impressive. It was looking super drawish just not too long ago. And Wesley's been, yeah, look at the bar here.
Oof,
G5.
reacts.
If you'd asked me to guess 5 moves for black, David, I would not have thought about G5 in that position.
No, me neither, I've got to admit. And, OK, the evaluation bar stays there, meaning that white's advantage is actually long-term, that black made... Oh, then it drops. So maybe black made a tactical mistake, but Wesley didn't pounce on it immediately. I'm not sure exactly what that was. Maybe it was some way to try and force the queens off the board, but I didn't spot it. Wesley didn't spot it, and both players are around the 2-minute mark now. So we might see those occasional swings, but queen endgames, precision is so difficult. Every move, white will have 10 possible queen moves, but often only one of them will be strong. So from a human point of view, extremely hard to guess that. And, OK, he gives a couple of checks. White's queen is centralised as well. That's what you want in queen endgames. Look at the white queen. She controls the whole board. The black queen, very passive, only controlling a few squares. So advantage white, but not winning yet.
It's going to take a lot of work, and I'm going to ask you guys, put you guys on a spot here. Predict a result right now in this one.
I'll choose the one that you don't choose, Robert. I'll let you have the first pick.
I'm going to pick a draw. I think I think the white king will be a little bit too exposed, because what Wesley wants to do is create a pass pawn. We've talked about this. If you cut the board, you look at the various pawns, the 2 pawns for black on the B file stop by 1 white pawn. The F2 pawn, which is right next to the king, it can push 2 squares forward. But as soon as you do that, your king becomes vulnerable to checks from the other side. And we see that Hikaru, he brings his queen back a square, going after the pawn on D5. So it's hard for white to both defend that pawn and allow himself to push his F pawn forward. So I just don't think he has enough in this position to get a win.
Yeah, I'll go for a win for white, but reluctantly. I was also going to call draw, but yeah, we'll see. I do believe in Wesley's conversion chances against anyone in the world, other than maybe Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. And that's the kind of really elite competition he has to face here, that he has to break down. These really incredible heights that he has to scale. But first, he's offering a queen trade, and you have to say no if you're Hikaru Nakamura, I think, because white's pawn structure is superior. King and pawn endgames will favour white.
You have to say no, but also you have to be careful where you move that queen to, David, because just imagine, you want to give a check on that central square, so you decide, you know what, I'm just going to sidestep it all the way to G7 so I can land on E5 next. And guess what happens then? It's just a mate in 1 with queen F5. That would be game over. So, of course, Hikaru knows what he's doing. He declines the queen trade. Very important point, Robert, you made earlier, that all king-pawn endings are, or at least should be, winning for white, and the queens have to stay on the board. Queen E8 also comes in with the idea of centralizing it to E5, and that's kind of a square you want it on.
Yeah, I suddenly see Robert being very interested in this position for white. It looks like some nasty queen check, potentially.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see, can I at some point offer a queen trade, but if the king goes G7, if you go queen E6, that's one of the ideas I'm trying to figure out. The queens are swapped. Then I was feeling like black wins this pawn on E6, but maybe even though black is going to be up a pawn in material, white is going to still be the side with the advantage because you go f4. This is crazy. You take it, king takes back, you take on e6, black goes up a pawn, but is actually losing. Your extra pawn is on the d file. White has the outside pawn. It's a distraction. The black king will have to scoot over. The white king will swoop in, win first the d pawn, then both of the b pawns, and win the game. That's how endgames often go with just king and pawns.
Yeah, and actually those b pawns, they're basically the same as one.
It's on the board.
Wow. Okay, Wesley So banking on this king and pawn endgame being winning. Hikaru's going to have to calculate really well here.
He did.
He did. He dodged it. And I think he was right to do so. So still very solid for black, still defending this pawn, hinting and jumping in with some counter checks. Can Wesley win? His queen is getting in now. Wow, this one, it feels like it should be really promising, but not quite winning yet for Wesley So, and both players now under the minute mark, around 40 seconds each. This one is going to be a race. Can Hikaru hold? It's not going to be easy for him.
It really feels like it's hanging by a thread for black, and Hikaru absolutely precise here, declines the queen trade. The fact that he could have won a pawn in the king pawn ending and still it would be lost goes on to show that no matter what, he cannot afford to trade queens. And there, Wesley not repeating with a check, but now it just feels like Hikaru's queen has managed to get active.
Yeah, and as soon as white's queen gets greedy and starts taking some pawns on the wrong flank on the queen side, the black queen will have all the time in the world to deliver a bunch of nasty checks. So it looks like we might get a repetition. We might get a draw now.
Check, draw.
Yeah, second time we've seen that position. Okay, Wesley plays on. This is promising. That's
nice,
what we like to see. He's looking for his chances. He drops the queen back. Hikaru has to be careful where he puts the black king. If the black king lands on the wrong square, we could see a queen exchange on white's terms. So Hikaru still with some questions to answer.
What could be a wrong square?
If the king comes forward, maybe onto the f-file, shift towards the centre, at some point, you've got to time it right, but the white queen... Wow, like now.
Oh!
Could he have swapped queens there?
Oh, Hikaru saw it immediately, and he's shocked.
Oh, my... And we've got to show that.
It's a draw. They've repeated the position 3 times, but did Wesley have a win on that final move just before he agreed to draw? I'm going to check this, but both players seem to miss that white could have traded off the queens, and Hikaru reacted. Wesley could have won. It's confirmed. He could have won if he didn't trade the queens off.
What?
The final move was a blunder by Wesley So.
And Wesley So has not reacted. We saw a big reaction on Hikaru rushing off, but it is a draw. Do you think Wesley knows he had a win here?
I mean, as soon as the game ends and you see the game analysis, he knows it was winning. But, you know, it looks like he's just trying to keep himself composed. And Wesley is second to none at doing that. I'm just waiting for the reaction. I feel like that's it right there.
He knows it. He knows it, Robert.
Yeah,
he knows it. He's just keeping a poker face right now. He doesn't want to give it away. And there we have it. That was the moment.
That was Hikaru's reaction. Game 1 in the loser final ends with a draw. Hikaru Nakamura will have the white pieces in the second game. David, show us, what was this?
I'm so shocked, Kaya, because just as an instructive point, I was saying don't allow a queen trade. That's the only way you lose this position as black. And Hikaru, he just missed it. And Wesley So trusted him. Wesley So didn't even look to try and punish his opponent. And it was in this position. It's still a draw. The position has almost repeated itself a few times. And Hikaru maybe relaxed one move too early. He brought his king to the f-file. And Kai, you were asking this question. How can white win this game? That's by trading queens. Robert's mentioned it before. Any queen endgame, any king and pawn endgame, sorry, once the queens disappear, is winning for white. And white could have simply moved the queen across. This is a pin. The queens are disappearing from the board. And there's no way to save this one for black. If the queens come off, the white king is first to reach the center. And next move, you create a pawn majority on the king side. You have 3 versus 2, and it's an easy win. Black could try and spin that in a few different ways, try to defend, but it would have been helpless, hopeless. He would have lost the game. So just one move by Wesley So, offering that queen trade, would have won the game. Instead, he repeated with a check, and it was a draw. Shocking.
This whole concept of just bulldozing the black king, jumping in there with the queen, and making sure the rook comes in with a ladder mate is everything this chapter is about.
Everything this chapter is about.
The point is, I don't want you to get a move that's not in the course and go, I don't know what to do. 92% of games get to this position. From this position, white is winning about 60-70% of the time. And I think if you learn these lines, that very easily could be 75% or 80% for you.
Drama Drama. It's day 4 in the Airthings Masters Game 2. The final rapid game between Hikaru and Wesley is coming up very shortly. If you're not a subscriber, here is a Twitch break. Whoa, Wesley So could have taken the lead, but it ends with a draw. Dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely dramatic. And
microphone.
I mean, completely unexpected as well. I mean, I did wonder by Hikaru's reaction that maybe it was some kind of mouse slip, but we'll find out now later on. But talking about drama, that's not been the only drama, because there has been many exciting things happening in Division 2 and Division 3. So starting with Division 2, the winners portion, Fabiano faced off against Yu Yang Yi, and the first game went Fabi's way. He just played excellent chess, and Game 3 actually saw a little bit of a turnaround because Yu Yang Yi kind of switched his tactics, and he really started to push Fabiano Caruana right to the edge. And just when it was looking promising, he made a critical mistake. And, you cannot make a mistake against these 2700 Super Grandmasters. And that was it. His tournament is over. And, now he's going to the losers bracket. I forgot about double elimination. But Fabiano Caruana, he is on top of the winners bracket. And sadly,
he's ready for the grand final, Fabiano Caruana.
Yeah, he is ready for the grand final. And sadly, we also had to say goodbye to Vladimir Kramnik. He bid too low in the Armageddon and found himself with too little time.
Yeah, the winner of Division 2 will qualify for Division 1 in Event 2. There's also a big grand final going on today in Division 3. Pragnananda and Sam Sevian. Is it finished?
No, they're still playing their fourth game, but I mean, it was just insane, I have to say. First game was just wild. I haven't seen a game like that ever. But in second game, with the black pieces, Sam Sevian just struck back with such powerful chess. And the third game was very tense, very cagey, very long drawn out. And now they're playing game 4, and anything can happen.
Wow. What a cool day of chess in the Airthings Masters Game 2. Final rapid game in the losers final between Wesley and Hikaru is coming up in just a few minutes.
We're off. It's the Italian game. This is what Wesley has been going to. It's his go-to opening.
I do feel like this position is so solid for Hikaru.
And there we have it.
Hikaru missed it. Look at Hikaru's face. He looked to the side and he was, oh, what is that? And he realizes that now he is going to face a terrible ending while queen and rook's on the board, but a horrible pawn structure. That was a missed shot from Hikaru.
Wow. What is your reaction to just how that game ended, Robert?
Well, it was sturdy defense for Hikaru for a very long time. So for Wesley, he didn't have too much time remaining. I feel like he thought the draw was inevitable, but that's why you never stop calculating. For Wesley, he should have paused. Hikaru realized it only after his move. It could have even been a mouse slip, but you need to make the most of your changes because they don't come often against Hikaru Nakamura.
So if he would have paused for only 5-10 seconds, would he have seen it, do you think?
Absolutely, because the king and the queen were on the same line. He could have offered the queen trade. He knew the king and pawn end games were good for him. I think he just thought the draw was in the bag, and he just said, let's go to game 2.
Wow. And it's going to be game 2. It is best out of 2 here on the losers bracket. So if we have a winner in this game, then that player will make it through to tomorrow's grand final to face off against Magnus Carlsen. If it is a draw, then this match will be decided in Armageddon. And Tanya, now Hikaru Nakamura will have the white pieces. What should we expect from game 2?
I'm still thinking about what we just saw. I am absolutely shocked. It's your birthday, but there Hikaru literally just gifted the game to Wesley in one move. And Wesley just declined the gift. Instead, he just repeated, I can't believe it. I've never seen anything like that. And now this just means not only fighting Hikaru with the black pieces, but also fighting your own mind.
Yeah.
Because Wesley knows what he missed. And that's going to be hard to overcome.
How mentally hard is that, David?
It's incredibly hard. I was praising these players for shaking it off, forgetting things, but that was elementary stuff. That was that will play on both their minds for sure. And now I think the big question is Hikaru, after recovering from that shock, is he going to play a real game, or are we going to get another Berlin draw? Are we going to go straight to Armageddon to decide it? Just give those players a bit more time to recover, to relax. And I do feel that has been Hikaru's strategy throughout the tournament. He's done it twice, both against Wesley and Magnus, and I think it's likely again. Just it would be understandable, very understandable here, just because he needs to get over that one moment, that one move.
Yeah, we did hear Wesley predict that before the match started, that Hikaru would try to go for the Armageddon. Is that what you think as well, Robert?
I can, not to pull a Charles Barkley, but I guarantee it. I think that Hikaru Nakamura, he does it for the fans. He wants this to go to Armageddon. He thinks it's good content. Wesley So not even at the board right now. He just sits back, and I think we will see that Berlin repetition.
Okay, so blink and you miss it. This one might be over soon. And,
we should be firm on the board. It's happening, guys. It's going to happen. But I think this time, probably Wesley's had a shift in his mind. And there it is, David. It is on the board. The check and back and check and back and check and back. And that's it.
Yo-yo between the queens. And it's over. We have a draw. We're going to Armageddon.
We are going to Armageddon, you guys. And we do love that. Game 2 is a super quick draw between Hikaru and Wesley. And that means 10 minutes. They're now going to make their bids and decide this match in Armageddon. Wow. Okay, so we're not surprised. That is kind of fun, though.
It's your birthday wish.
Yeah,
you said you wanted Armageddon. Yeah. We get Armageddon.
Yes, we do. All right, so what do you expect now, Robert? Now they're going to start thinking about their bids. What will be the bids from these two now?
I think Hikaru is going to go lower than he did it against Magnus because Wesley, he's going to see that match. He really wants the black pieces. He hasn't struggled against Hikaru over the board. I mean, he's never really had a disadvantage, but you don't want to go too low. So here you're talking 8.5 minutes. Hikaru is so dangerous. And yesterday with White against Magnus, he really did almost make Magnus pay. He went down to the wire. So I think that Hikaru really, really, really wants black, but Wesley has to be careful not to go too low on the clock.
Do you agree, Tanya? They both want the black pieces?
100%. And it is all about, once again, finding that balance with the clock and wanting the black pieces, because you also don't want to get flagged. You need to have enough time. Whoever is the player who does play with White is definitely going to do everything to have a storm on the board. So you want that time to be able to overcome those difficult questions. Once again, because this was such a quick draw, I think for Wesley to overcome what happened in game 1 is also something he needs to fight a little bit. He mentioned at the start, Kaya, that he would prefer to not take it to the Armageddon. But I think after what we just saw, he's also sort of fine with it because he kind of didn't want to fight that game too much with the black pieces. Hikaru's sticking to his strategy. He doesn't care. He's got a tunnel vision on this. The man comes with a plan, and he stands for it.
Yeah. It seems Hikaru really has a plan for his bids here. He's really calculating. He has good reason behind his bids. What do you think about Wesley? What is his strategy, do you think?
Well, it feels like Wesley would be okay with any scenario, to be honest, but he will have been thinking about it more over the last few days. He will have seen that crazy bid between Magnus and Hikaru. He knows that if Hikaru is willing to play with under 9 minutes against Magnus, he's going to be willing to play under 9 minutes against Wesley as well. And Wesley just has to weigh up in his mind, is he happy with 8.5 minutes, maybe, as Robert says, against Hikaru taking black? Or is he going to just say, OK, I'll take the white pieces, I'll have a 6-minute advantage, and I will punish you? Because he nearly did punish Nakamura in game 1 of the day. I do wonder if we'll see like 8 minutes 58 against 8 minutes 57 this time, or a few seconds lower, just as the mind games happen.
Guys, I'm predicting an 8 minutes, somewhere in the 8 to 8.5 bracket here.
All right.
I think it's playing with fire because we did see in game 1 that Wesley with the white pieces, he can get an advantage, and he almost won with equal time on the clock. So I really don't think you can go too low. But Hikaru, we know his mouse speed. He's the bullet chess champion. He's been the top-rated player on the site for so many years. He will take that risk, and at the end of the day, he can say, I did it for the fans.
It's going to be so exciting, you guys. We are waiting for the bids to come in, and we'll be back right after this. We're going to take a Twitch break. If you're not a subscriber, if you are a subscriber, well, we're building up to the big Armageddon. Still waiting for the bids to come in from Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So. What will be their bids for the Armageddon to decide the losers final and who goes through to face Magnus Carlsen in tomorrow's grand final? While we wait, we're going to hear from some of the top players in the world. Before the tournament started, we met them in Vaikanse, where they were playing the Tata Steel tournament, and asked them who they think will be the top players in the Champions Chess Tour this season. If I can ask you to write how you think the top 5 overall standings in Champions Chess Tour will look like this season.
Is Alireza playing? Or is he into fashion now?
Should I put myself?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll go with Magnus.
Okay, first one is a long name.
My mother is watching us, I have to be careful.
You know what, I can be confident, no? I can put my name.
Of course.
You know, I just beaten Magnus here in Vaikanse, so I'm returning a favor there. Returning a favor to a good old friend.
So you have Nakamura on top. Why is that?
Yeah, he's just been like winning all his events. Whenever I see him play, he wins. So he's probably gonna take this one as well.
Ding has bad internet, so he is left out.
I just put myself in the middle.
We need confidence. So Magnus, Hikaru, Prag, Alireza, and Wesley So.
Yeah.
Your handwriting is very nice.
Thank you.
That's your only bet.
Yeah, that's my only bet.
All right.
Magnus Carlsen is super confident. His only bet, myself, on the tour standings 2023. He will play the grand final tomorrow, and he will play against either Wesley So or Hikaru Nakamura. They are getting ready for Armageddon in the losers final. We are waiting for their bids to come in. And just to remind everyone, Robert, what are the regulations for the Armageddon, especially the bidding process that is kind of new to chess?
A new day, the regulations have not changed, so the players have a base time of 15 minutes. You bid as low as you want, and the player with the lower bid gets to choose their color. They typically choose the black pieces, and they start with that amount of time. So if I bid 8 minutes and you bid 10, I get the 8 minutes, the black pieces that I'll choose, and I get draw odds. So if you do not win, you do not go on. So that's where the rub is. You need to win with the white pieces.
Yeah, and yesterday we saw Magnus go as low as 8 minutes and 58 seconds. Hikaru went as low as 8 minutes and 59 seconds. And that was low. You guys thought that was very low. That is almost on the limit on how low you can go.
Well, I don't know how good they are at limbo, but it does seem like they're willing to play with fire in terms of the clock. I think Hikaru being so speedy, he's okay with it. Wesley, I can't see him going that low on time against someone like Hikaru Nakamura.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Hikaru will go lower than he did yesterday, though, David?
I think so, as Robert said, for the memes, for the fans, for the entertainment, but also for his chances. I do believe having black, just the way he's been playing, is a big bonus. It means that he can react. This goes for both players. Just reacting is so much easier in blitz chess, in Armageddon chess, especially when your nerves are high. So whoever gets black, I think, is still the favorite, as long as they have over 8.5 minutes. But either way, it's going to be exciting stuff. It's going to be a race against the clock for whoever gets black.
Definitely, definitely. We have some news from Division 3. Sam Sevian has won the grand final against Pragnananda and is the winner of Division 3. Sending huge congratulations to Sam for winning that. Here we have it, Sam Sevian, the winner of the grand final in Division 3. That's been a tough fight with how many players? 32 players was in Division 3. And Prag, an amazing player, losing in the grand final to Sam. The grand final in Division 1 is coming up tomorrow. Magnus Carlsen is waiting for either Wesley So or Hikaru Nakamura to join him in that final. It will be decided here in Armageddon. We are waiting for the bids to come in. I'm so excited for it. What will it be?
We can just sit back and relax because either ways, it's going to be an incredible final. And I think in just a few moments, Kaya, we're going to find out. Hikaru, Wesley thinking, and I see a smile, so they know each other's bid. And it looks like Wesley might, I don't know why I get the feeling, but Hikaru might have won the bid.
This is probably them seeing each other's bids. That means we will get them very shortly. Big smile on Wesley's face. What do you think of
Was it close again? Was there only 1 second in it?
I don't know the answer, but I'm guessing so. And I think Wesley is the happier of the two, which likely means he gets the black pieces.
Yeah, you think so?
Just based on the reaction there. And we will not see a quick Berlin draw, that's for sure. But either way, Wesley finally has a smile on his face. After game one, he was having to control himself. He was upset about missing a big advantage in a winning endgame. But we see Wesley, he's typically stoic. He is as good as anyone at keeping calm.
Yeah, wow, I'm impatient to find out.
I can't wait. I mean, I saw Wesley smile, but it almost looked like it was an amused smile, like just a missed one. And I felt that, did Hikaru win that by just a small margin? Is he just laughing at how bad the situation is right now? I don't know what's going on here.
Hikaru looks really focused, like in business mode there. He looks determined to win. And just taking a last break before the game starts. Wesley needs to compose himself either way.
Well, maybe part of it is that Hikaru hasn't really played a game with the white piece against Wesley. Every time he gets the first move, he makes this short draw. So if he does, in fact, have white and needs to play for a win, he needs to come up with an opening because every time he is sat across the board from Wesley, he forces that draw. That is not acceptable in this Armageddon.
Guys, I think Hikaru's won the bid. I don't know why, but I'm really getting the feeling that Hikaru gets to pick the color.
It's probably a debate in chat right now. Who won the bid? I want to know too. We're guessing here in the studio. It's just pure speculation.
Oh, but, chat, what do you think? I don't know.
Here we go. Okay, we have the bids in. Wesley So has been 8 minutes and 24 seconds. Hikaru Nakamura, 8 minutes and 5 seconds. That means Hikaru wins the bid. He chooses the black pieces. 8 minutes and 5 seconds.
Guys, I also got the time right. I said between 8 and a half, and I could just feel it from Wesley's reaction that it was a close bid, and Hikaru is the one, which means Hikaru is perhaps going to start with black now. And Wesley with 15 minutes, the pressure is on.
Wesley So will have the white pieces. He will have to win this game to make it to the grand final. Hikaru with 8 minutes and 5 seconds.
And again, something's happened. What's going on? Hikaru with his signature hand raise?
Yeah, he doesn't look fully composed yet, Hikaru. Of course, he's in business mode. He knows it's a race, and okay, they're off. It's all about the mouse skills now. Yeah. And it's the scotch. Wow, something that Wesley knows a lot about. You mentioned this on previous days, Robert. Something happened here.
What's going on with Hikaru? Why?
He is annoyed about something.
Maybe he's annoyed at facing the scotch. I mean, it's not something he gets to see every day. Wesley So has played this even in classical events at the elite level, so it can't be a complete surprise. But bishop d3 here, that's not something we're used to seeing. Oftentimes, white pushes the c-pawn to kick the knight out of the center. But bishop d3, I think this is an Armageddon surprise.
Yeah, also Hikaru launching the first surprise. Black's knight coming into the center, maybe not the recommended antidote. Normally black kind of creates a pin on the e-file with the queens. A lot of awkward tension there, lots of theory, of course, but both players trying to get out of that theoretical battle now. This is far from anything we've seen between these two before, at least in this tournament. And both players thinking at an early stage, both out of book, seemingly. At least Wesley already burning 40 seconds on his clock. Normally you just trade off pawns here, get castled, but things would start disappearing from the board. Already one set of knights have left. More pawns getting traded. Decent position for Hikaru, you would think.
And David, you're absolutely right. This move, bishop d3, is something that's not very common. The pawn from c2 goes to c4, hits that knight in the center already, and that would be mainline theory, but instead Wesley springing this quick surprise. But Hikaru playing quick because he has gambled quite a bit to get the black pieces. I mean, an 8-minute, 5-second bid, that is playing with fire.
But why is Wesley spending so much time here? I feel like you're clock is your biggest asset, and he's really thinking quite a long time now. His advantage on the clock will remain. It's so much time to gamble for Hikaru Nakamura, almost 7 minutes to start with, but he has a bunch of options. He can just take the pawn, as he finally has done, but I think he needs to make these moves quickly. That's what Hikaru did so well yesterday against Magnus. It didn't quite work out, but he was playing instantly in most turns, and what Hikaru Nakamura says usually is the best advice. Play good moves quickly rather than the perfect moves slowly. I think Wesley needs to take that advice right now.
Scotch this early, his comment in the Twitch chat. It's late in Norway. It is a good time for Scotch.
It's always a good time for Scotch. And meanwhile, again, Wesley hesitating, pausing, just get that white king to safety, castle the king. What could be more natural? It definitely feels like the nerves or the momentous occasion, it's playing on his mind. And okay.
And that's what he was thinking about, David, because this is an interesting option. He takes advantage of the fact that Hikaru did not capture with the bishop, developing a piece or recapture that pawn with the queen. And he is attacking that d5 knight. Black's king is still in the center. Now one can be like, wait a second, Hikaru can pin that bishop. A very tempting option. You move your queen to e7 because white's king is also in the center. But that is when Wesley says, I don't care. I'm going to go castle on the right side of the board, and now, sure, come on, pick up my bishop, and watch out for your king in the center. Rook e1 pins and wins. The queen falls, and this is the idea that Wesley was looking at. Now, guys, he's got to win on demand. Every capture on the board is where he's going to take his time. He took his time to pick up that pawn on d6. He took his time to go for the most combative option with the bishop to e4, and we see the drawback with this move. Hikaru says, I'm ready for a fight, doesn't care about that pawn in the center, develops his bishop, stops white's king from getting to safety.
Yeah, talking of combative, this is really, really hair-raising stuff already. Hikaru choosing the most aggressive move, the most ambitious move, even though he only needs a draw. Now white can win a pawn. You can capture this pawn in the center for free, seemingly, but your king will be stuck for a long time. And as long as you can defend against threats such as this check for black, then you will have a long-term initiative. The bishop pair and white can't castle kingside. So really creative stuff. And okay, he played it after not that much thought, Hikaru. So the time advantage slowly slipping away. What do we think of this? I love it. I've got to say, this last move by Hikaru.
I love the move by Hikaru, but I love the type of position for Wesley So. You need something full of life, and this position is not easy to figure out. So Hikaru made a very interesting last move, but look at the pawns in the center, even if you don't take it right away, because that does give black time to maybe give the king a check, maybe bring the rook towards the center and go after white's undeveloped camp. I feel like that's a long-term problem, and for Hikaru, it's not going to be easy to solve, and I think that's exactly what Wesley needs, to keep pieces on the board, keep the problems there, and he says, let me just grab the pawn right away. No issues from Wesley So's perspective.
He's going all out, and I love it. I love this approach of not backing down. He can't afford to be solid in this game. He picks up that extra material. Hikaru moved the rook, attacking the pawn. Wesley defends it, developing his own piece. Of course, the king is still stuck in the center, but not for long. David, he can look at an idea of going long castle on the other side of the board, but again, that will come with its own set of dangers.
Yeah, he's not just looking at it. I think he's going to go for it, Tanya, and it's more out of necessity than anything. That white king is never castling kingside. The bishop cuts across the board like a razor there, and as soon as he gets given just one more move, Wesley So, he's going to castle on the long side. He's going to say, come at me, and he's going to hope that his extra pawn, he can nurse it to victory. It does look like the white bishop has a nice home in the center of the board as well. He'll try and neutralize black's dark square bishop, black's bishop pair. But if he does so, he's a pawn up. He's 5 minutes up, still on the clock. Big advantage, I fear, for Hikaru now.
Yeah, it's a really nice move, bishop e3, because the black dark square bishop would like to slide one square forward in the diagonal to go after the knight. But the problem is the white bishop will slide in its path off for a trade. Trades do not help black in this position. So bishop f6 will be met with bishop d4. The white king will safely castle queenside in the near future. And I just get the sense that for Hikaru, he's worried about the fact that he's not going to have a big attack on the queen side. When you are lacking in pawns, you have open files. That's the good news for black rooks. But if you castle kingside, it takes a while for your f8 rook to jump on over to the b8 square. And if that rook did land on the queen side, then we'd be talking some serious firepower for black. That's several moves away. The queen and the rook have to get out of the path. I think it's just a little bit too slow.
It's a little bit too slow indeed. And, OK, he speeds things up by attacking that white queen. But the white queen will happily slide back. The bishop will sit on this nice central post that we've highlighted. And white's king should still feel relatively cozy, comfortable on the queen side. Up to Hikaru now. Pressure's on him. I mentioned that having black in Armageddon, it's nice when you can play reactive chess. You can just play quick moves. You don't have to calculate too much. But he can't react anymore. He's a pawn down. The onus, the burden is on him. And he's down more than 5 minutes now, of course, which doesn't help at all. OK, he's activating his queen, Hikaru. Nice move there. Very logical.
And for at least one move, white cannot castle on queenside because watch out for that a2 pawn. It will be hanging if white decides to get his king safety at this point. So currently, kings are still in the center. Black is threatening to castle kingside on the very next move, and white's king still struggling there. So there is some compensation as long as Hikaru can make sure that the king doesn't get to safety.
Yeah, and Wesley So with a big decision now, but he does have time in the bank. This is a good point to invest a minute or two just to try and figure out how to get that white king to safety, as Tanya mentions. And critical moment, Hikaru will be looking for ways to continue just annoying, probing against that white queen side if the white king does end up there. And yeah, I've got to say, just this has lived up to expectations, this Armageddon game. This is really fascinating to watch. I'm glad we're seeing a proper chess game. No more Berlin draws. Don't want to see that Berlin draw ever again.
And it's only just starting because look at Hikaru's clock, just over 5 minutes. Wesley has now dipped under 10. But something that's a problem in Hikaru's position is even if he wins a pawn back, his pawns are split on the queen side. So if Wesley can trade the queens, that doesn't just simplify matters at all. Wesley will have a long-term nagging advantage, and we could see that in the next few moves. I actually think there are some potential variations where Wesley, for example, castles queenside here. If you play bishop takes a2, maybe the move knight d5. Look at the queens. They're staring at each other, and if you think you're just going to trade queens on d2 and will enter an equal endgame, not so fast. The pawn on a7, it's already targeted. The knight on d5 is super strong. The pawn on d6 is super weak, and white will slide the next rook over the d file. This is a long-term advantage that Wesley could win in a classical game of chess with even time. But with Hikaru down to nearly 5 minutes on the clock, you do not want to have this ending.
Yeah, the more I look at it, Robert, there, the stronger this move appears. Just castle queenside, bite the bullet. You have to be very brave. You have to calculate things correctly. But if you can get away with it, meeting this pawn capture with a knight jump, then you've got to go for it. You might not get given another opportunity to castle that side. It is very brave. I do wonder what happens if black keeps the queens on, for example. All you need to do is move this bishop out the way and then dive in with the queen to a1. This would be checkmate, so it's very risky. But if you can get away with it, you should do it now. And Wesley still thinking suddenly only a 3-minute advantage. Time is ticking. And Hikaru will be gaining in confidence every second that ticks away.
Yep. He will be in the grand final with a draw in this game. Hikaru Nakamura, 5 minutes and 19 seconds left on the clock. No increment in Armageddon. Wesley So has to win this game. And his clock is ticking now down to 8 minutes. Is he spending too much time?
Absolutely. I think he's taking way too much time because he needs to keep the pressure alive on the clock. He has to take a decision one way or the other. Whether he decides to give up that pawn and go for the lines that David and Robert have been mentioning or make another move. But it's also hard to come up with an alternative here. You guys have been talking about bringing the dark squared bishop to the center of the board. And I think that's another idea that Wesley is looking at. Just shifting this bishop from e3 to d4, eyeing that pawn on the king side, the g7 pawn. But whatever Wesley does, he has to do it quick. He can't lose his time advantage here.
Yeah, let's see what Stockfish suggests, potentially. Just how wide is the margin for error here for white? How much can you go wrong, but still keep it within manageable bounds? And, okay, wow, it did suggest pawn to a3. Stockfish, the best move, giving over 1 point advantage for white, simply because white's 1 pawn up. And Wesley does eventually find the best move, but it did come at the cost of nearly 5 minutes on the clock. Long think. And now Stockfish saying, okay, black has a bunch of moves. Maybe the best is to push black's central pawn forward. These guys are so good. They keep playing the best move. But is it enough? It still thinks, Stockfish, that white has the advantage. And is now the time to castle queenside. It looks just as risky as before, I've got to say. But the computer says, yes, you can get away with it. Black has ideas of sacrificing pieces, opening up the position around the white king. Pawns will be vulnerable on that left side. But he's got to calculate. He's got to decide quick, Wesley So.
David, I have to show an absolutely crazy line. While you were talking, I was thinking whether this works or not. And I think it does. If you go long castle, guess what's on my mind right now?
The fact that you say it's crazy means it's a cool sacrifice.
It is a cool sacrifice, but it is a queen sacrifice. And let's take a look at this. Can queen a3 be a reality? Because if you pick up the queen, I give a check. You sidestep with the king. I give another check with my rook. I've got 3 pieces in the attack. I still don't see a mate, but I think we're getting closer. King to a1 is the only move. I jump in with my bishop, give another check. You've got only 1 square left. I pick up that knight.
You don't need a checkmate, Tanya. You only need a draws black, so you can keep repeating moves. You can keep checking the white king for eternity. No way the white king can hide from the rook and the combined might of the bishops.
I'm still disappointed it's not a mate, though.
Wow, yeah, I mean, it might be. Who knows? But Hikaru won't even look for a mate. He'll take the draw and get out of here. And that variation was scary enough for Wesley So to retreat his knight. But that's a really sad move to play. Not only have you put the knight on a terrible square, but you've also got in the way of your idea of castling queenside. And at least he's gaining a tempo, however, with the queen trade threat.
And I have called Wesley So Karpovian. What he's trying to do is move his bishop to the d4 square, then break his knight that was on c3 up to the e3 square, get that pesky bishop out of c4, and the knight e3 protects c2. So you are more likely to castle queenside because your bishop on d4 protects the b2 pawn, the knight protects the c2 pawn. I feel like Wesley has done some really nice maneuvering here, but Hikaru reacting very quickly as well, playing for the attack.
Yeah, playing for the attack. So now these black bishops are really getting their money's worth. They're really doing a good job. This is a nasty pin. But if Wesley gets a move or two to shuffle into the corner, he'll feel very, very safe now. And, OK, Hikaru has that luxury. It's only 1 minute in it. Can he whip up an attack? Can he get those black rooks active? Big questions here to answer for both sides. This one could go either way. On the board, on the clock, still advantage Wesley, but not by much anymore. He does shuffle into the corner.
Now that White's king is in safety and White does have that extra pawn and that beautiful bishop on d4, really not only defending his own the queen side, the long castle, but also eyeing Black's king on g7, gives Wesley the hope to launch a kingside attack, and that's what he's done. And Hikaru taking this opportunity to at least go in for an opposite color bishop position. Now, if pieces do end up getting traded, it can very well end in a draw, as the bishops are not of the same color, and those positions are super famous for, even with extra material, often just being a draw. But I'm expecting Wesley to keep all the pieces on the board, try and create an attack on Hikaru's king, because that's where the chance is. White's bishop cannot be challenged, and that's the key. Your queen jumps onto g5, you hit that pawn on g7, you're already threatening a mate in this position. Wesley looking for an attack.
Yeah, and Hikaru looking very proud of himself, nodding his head there. This last move, a very clever one. I really like it. Just putting his pawn on f6, just neutralizing any threats that the white bishop can create against the black king. Once those threats have been neutralized, Hikaru can go about the job of just trading off the rooks, trading off the queens. There we go. One set of rooks have parted from the board. If the rooks and queens disappear, very likely to be a draw. Still not over, but opposite color bishops.
Only one good thing in Wesley's back pocket. He's up a pawn. And where is that pawn? It currently sits on b2. So at some point, he's going to push that pawn to b3 and spring free a passed pawn. Opposite colored bishop endgames, with just bishop and pawns known for their tendency to be a draw. However, if you can get an outside passed pawn, you distract black's pieces that they have to deal with that, and then you can focus on the other side of the board. So Wesley, he is slightly better. He is up a pawn. He's also still ahead by almost a minute on the clock, but this is where Hikaru's at his best. He plays these moves so fast, he finds the strategies. I just think it's really, truly difficult, even if the time had an hour on the clock for each.
Wow, and now Hikaru hits 2 pawns. There was the H pawn hanging and the G. The only way to defend it is what Wesley has played. The queen jumps further, and now he's threatening back rank threat, so don't get greedy with the queen, Wesley. If he starts approaching the queen side pawn, it can very well end in disaster with a check on the back rank. He falls back first, eyeing the h5 pawn instead.
And now big decision, guys. Does black trade off the queens? It's very committal. You can bring the black queen down to f1 on the first rank. That's a pin, just like Wesley missed actually in the previous game. You force the trade of queens. It's opposite color bishops, but then, as Robert mentions, the white pawns start running. Hikaru says no, can't allow the white pawns to move. And this is a really nice square for the black queen. She's always centralizing is good, but she's eyeing up those white pawns on the diagonal. And very, very difficult for Wesley to actually make progress. He can move his bishop around, but the white king not entirely safe. I feel like Hikaru is playing extremely well right now.
Yeah.
And it's hard for Wesley to make any headway. Still a minute in it, but OK, second time we've seen this position now. Wesley can't repeat. He can't go for the draw.
And it just feels like black's pieces are so active right now, the queen and the bishop, and as long as they stay alive, Hikaru creates his chances, and not trading the queen's a great idea, but I also like what Wesley's doing. He's bringing the third piece into the game. It happens to be the king, and we might see the king march up the board all the way, starting to attack the a4 pawn.
Yeah, and Hikaru's terrified of a potential king march by white. He drops the black queen
It's
back,
happening.
and here we
David.
come. Come on, Wesley So, bring that king forward. Ask those questions. And if you're Hikaru, you're panicking right now because that white king is going to support the advance of that white pawn majority on the queen side.
Yeah, and a queen trade will not end in a draw. We keep talking about this. Opposite colored bishop usually means high chances for the draw. Not here with white's king very active, and there goes the b pawn. Now you're springing free of pass right. Do not take it. That's why Hikaru brings his bishop back. He does not want to allow connected pass pawns. But look at Wesley So inching in with the queen. Next, his king is coming up to b4. He is kicking black's pieces back, and I feel like he has great winning chances.
I was going to say, yes, Hikaru, come on, bring the black king forward. Bring the black king forward on the king side. But he's just waiting now. But the waiting game is not going to help too much. Suddenly you're getting overwhelmed on this queen side. It's 3 pieces against 2. Black's king is just an innocent bystander here. And does Wesley take another pawn?
Take it.
And Hikaru was shaking his head. He hates his position. He hates what he's trying to defend. Well, Wesley just falls back with the king. Now, remember, there's no increment here, so repetition makes no sense. I'm surprised he didn't pick up that second free pawn.
What's he doing? He's going backwards.
Yes.
That's the wrong direction. The white king is super safe here, yes, but it was doing such a good job leading from the front.
But the time, Wesley So is an experienced bullet player. We know how good Hikaru is. Wesley, he's no slouch either. So he's using the clock as a weapon, because if they're both spending a few seconds per turn, that's good news for Wesley, because at some point, Hikaru may not be able to find the correct continuation with just under a minute on his clock, which is where we're heading.
Yeah, that's actually very clever. That's a really relevant point, Robert. You're just going to maneuver on the dark squares. You can pretty much pre-move the next few turns for Wesley. And only when you reach that kind of 40, 50 move mark, then you push a pawn, then you commit, and then the counter starts afresh. Play on that 50 move rule. Don't necessarily need to rush to make any progress. And, oh, wow, another offer of a trade of queens. This is confident stuff from Wesley. I would not be 100% confident this is when winning this queenless endgame, but he's asking that question. Look how Hikaru's burning time, having to decide queen trade or no queen trade. And the status quo maintained. The clocks are ticking.
Wesley's played amazing chess right now. Every move, placing a piece on the dark square, just keeping up the pressure, offering a queen trade at the right time. He does it again. Hikaru's made up his mind that no matter what, he's not going into an endgame here. And Wesley, slowly and steadily, improving his piece position. The queen has landed on d6, a g4 break in the air, so dangers on both sides now.
But f3, that was not timed correctly by Wesley, because look at the black queen. It's ready to jump into the board if that pawn captures back on b3. So that was an inopportune moment for Wesley. So he take with this king, which is not what you want. You want connected pawns, and Hikaru's immediately going for the attack on the c2 pawn.
He's jumping in. You don't have time to pick up the d5 pawn. The f3 pawn that you pointed out, badly timed, is also hanging.
Yeah, suddenly it's turned around. We saw Hikaru do his trademark head bob there. He knows that he's fought back, and now he can just give a couple of checks. Where's this white king going to hide? The black queen can come back where she came from, eye up some of those weak white pawns on the king side. And at first he activates his king. I love to see it. King of the hill here, both kings advancing. But still, the clock, the biggest factor. 40 seconds in it now. Wesley retreating. He's lost control. Suddenly not so easy. Look how the black queen is just causing a nuisance from behind here. So many weaknesses in Wesley's camp.
And the king's got nowhere to hide. The white king, which looked absolutely safe, is now just running helter-skelter because there is no safe square from checks. Black, meanwhile, has sidestepped any threats along that pin that it was there, and king g6 is a super nice square. Hikaru Nakamura needs just a draw, and it looks like Wesley might have missed a huge opportunity.
Shaking his head, Wesley. Now it's only 15 seconds in it.
But he needs to be shameless. That's the problem that Wesley is having right now. He needs to go for the flag. It may be called dirty, it's whatever. Go for the time. And now he's doing it, but he's given up some pawns, and Hikaru is really not down the clock at all. It's a pure bullet game at this point. I mean, a little over a minute per side, and there are no problems for black anymore.
Sturmuk is asking in the Twitch chat, can Wesley simply flag Hikaru?
Not anymore.
Yeah, at this point, it's Hikaru trying to flag Wesley. It's basically level on the clock. And actually, if anything, Hikaru's position is easier to play. Look at this. He's just gobbling up pawns. Black has the more dangerous pass pawn. Black's H-pawn is going to start running any moment. Wesley on the defensive on the board and now not in charge on the clock anymore. I would pick black here, I've got to say.
And you can see it in his body language. He knows it. And Wesley there shaking his head. He's attacking the bishop. Hikaru gives a check first. The king moves forward. That h5 pawn is going to be a big distraction. And now he says, I'm ready for an endgame because he's got a passer of his own.
The queen trades are forced. There's no way that white can avoid it without just losing the game on the spot. That's why Hikaru's rolled up sleeves. We're in the endgame. White has these outside pass pawns. But look at black's h-pawn. That one is running up the board very fast. It's helped out. It's going to be escorted by the black king and the other pawns. This is just easy for Hikaru right now. And he's even ahead on time, right? He doesn't have any problems whatsoever.
Yeah, looks like Black is completely winning the race. Even without Black's 3 pawns, this is still actually a draw. So Hikaru, he knows he's got this in the bag. He's smiling. He's got a time advantage, and he clenches his fist. Wesley resigns.
Fist bump.
Wow, it's over. Hikaru Nakamura makes it through to the grand final. He will face off against Magnus Carlsen tomorrow again, winning here in Armageddon. Look at that, Hikaru Nakamura. What a beast he is in this format. Incredible. Is he frozen or?
I think he was frozen there, but we'll see the fist bump, any moment now. Wesley, meanwhile, shaking his head. He knows it was a missed opportunity. He had a pawn advantage. He had a few minutes advantage, but Hikaru too good.
Yeah. How impressed are you, Robert, with Hikaru Nakamura?
It was amazing because he was defending accurately, but I thought Wesley was actually going to flag Hikaru. He's playing every accurate move into one little slip, and Hikaru doesn't hesitate. He realizes it's a mistake, and he's able to secure an equal position, and then he's just much better, and Wesley had no choice but to tip his king over.
Yeah. Is it down to experience from Hikaru just having done this so many times in online chess?
Well, I don't think Wesley's done it any time less. I think Hikaru really believes in his abilities when it comes to the Armageddon. But of course, he's up against Wesley, who's also super duper strong in these kind of moments. And it was amazing to see Wesley create his chances with this game, with the white pieces. I think it all came down. I saw him marching up with the king, and I was like, Wesley's got this. He's doing all the right things. He realized the queen trade works for him. But then just one missed opportunity, and we keep saying this, Kaya, that Hikaru is so hard to beat in these positions. You give him one chance to come back, the guy does it. Super resilient, super resourceful, and that's what saved the day for him today.
Yeah. And he's ready for the grand final. We're joined by Hikaru Nakamura. Big congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very interesting match. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And what is your take on what happened in the end here in the Armageddon?
Yeah, I mean, obviously after yesterday, I wanted to bid low just to ensure that I got black, and I did get it. But I think, I mean, my bid was probably okay, but the opening that I played was very shaky. Not so much in that it was that it wasn't playable, but it was a very double-edged position where I can win or I can lose because I'm sacking a pawn. And when you're in that situation and you're down on the clock, it's really not optimal. And I suspect I was okay at some point after I sacked the pawn, but with like 8 minutes, you kind of have to just go. You can't really think too long. And Wesley was definitely better. I don't know if he was ever winning. I mean, it was also very tricky because there were multiple times that I could go into a bishops of opposite color endgame, but I wasn't really sure whether that's a draw or whether I'm losing or what's going on. So I rejected that. And then, yeah, he made this one mistake when he allowed me to take on b3 with the queen to e2 check. If he doesn't do this, I think there's still a very good chance he wins. That being said, I had my optimal setup already where I'm guarding the pawn on a4. He can't really push b4, c4 without the pawns getting blockaded. So it would have been on Wesley to prove it, but he had chances for sure. But one blunder was too much.
How scientific do you get when making your bids in the Armageddon, Hikaru?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's about being scientific. I think it's that when Wesley and I play, we're both extremely solid. I mean, for the most part, we play the exact same openings with both colors. And so I just want to be black no matter what. I mean, I thought about going even lower than I bid. I mean, I thought about going below 8, but I mean, at some point you have to feel like if your opponent outbids you, it's what it is. Like you just play with the white pieces, you take the time advantage and try to win, as opposed to being really, really clever. I mean, yesterday Magnus and I got it down to like sub 9 minutes. And actually a funny tidbit is that on the first day when I played, or the first match against Wesley, when I made my bid, the guy at chess.com, when I wrote like 9:28, I think it was, he's like, "Are you sure it's 15? It's a 15-minute game?" And it was kind of funny because obviously everyone is bidding well below 10 now. So, I mean, I think what I bid today was definitely very much on the edge. I find it hard to believe you can go much lower, but I found a way, and that's really all that matters.
Definitely.
Hikaru, congratulations. That was an absolutely thrilling Armageddon to watch. And I have to ask you about that first game against Wesley, the very last moment when you moved that king to f7. What happened there? Just take us through that situation.
I mean, the thing is, initially, I didn't realize that he could trade the queens. There was another variation where I think the queens get traded on like e6. I win the e pawn, but he can go like king g3 and f4, and that's winning. And so initially, I didn't realize that existed. And then I spot it, but then later, as we're getting low on time, I mean, I just played king f7 because I was sure queen e6 was the only move. For some reason, I just thought queen f3. I go queen f6, trade, king takes king e5, and I'm just winning because I win the pawn. But with the double pawns on the b file, it's actually losing. And yeah, I think pretty much as soon as I played it, he moved instantly. So I didn't quite have time for it to register until after the draw occurred. But I did, in that split second, I kind of did realize that it was a mistake. But you know, it is what it is, and obviously it was a bit of a miracle, but that's how it goes.
When something like that happens, do you also think that shifts the momentum for you in a way that Wesley realizes he had this huge opportunity to take a match lead, but failed to do so in that critical moment?
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you miss a win in one where there's no counterplay, where you just trade into a king and pawn endgame, which you're going to win 100% of the time, I mean, it is somewhat devastating. I mean, that being said, it's very tricky too, because after that, I wasn't sure if I should just make the draw or if I should actually try to beat him, because Wesley obviously was frustrated. I could see it on his face, and so I had a decision too. But I figured at the end of the day, you know, I'd rather flip coins, and hopefully it comes up heads more times than it comes up tails.
And Hikaru, first of all, congratulations. Looking forward to tomorrow. You're playing Magnus at least once, maybe even 2 matches. What's your strategy going to be like as you aim for revenge?
You know, I don't know. I feel like the two matches that I played against Magnus, this one and also the famous one back in 2020 where we played over 7 days, which was also rather fittingly decided by an Armageddon. You know, I think, I mean, we're both very good players. I mean, if there's anything, maybe I'll play with more risk because I do have to win 2 matches. You know, for example, say we get to an Armageddon tomorrow and I win that Armageddon, I still have to win another match. It's not as simple as winning 1 match. So, I mean, maybe I'll take more risk. It's hard to know, but it's always good to be in the finals, and it's always fun to play against Magnus. You know, we've played a lot over the years, and he's the best of the best. So if you want to win, you have to beat the best, and that's how I view it.
Yeah.
Hikaru, the chat has been asking this question a lot. We asked Magnus yesterday, so I have to ask you, which Pokemon is your favorite?
I mean, I've never played Pokemon. It's just not my thing. So, you know, I'm more of an old school guy. I played like the OG games, you know, the things like Diablo, Warcraft, StarCraft, like the real OG games, none of this new age hippie stuff. That's my answer.
Very cool, Hikaru. And while we're all looking forward to your match against Magnus tomorrow, you're still unbeaten in the Airthings Masters. How happy are you with the way you're playing?
You know, that's actually an interesting question. You know, more broadly speaking, it's not even so much about this event, but when you think about tournaments, I mean, the classic question that you can ask top players is, you know, if you play 2 games and you draw 2 games, is that better than winning a game and losing a game? And most players would say that 2 draws is better. And in a match format, certainly it's much more important to not lose games than it is to say win a game and lose a game. So it's definitely benefited me being very solid. But at the same time, I mean, the drawback is when you play in, say, Swiss tournaments like the World Blitz or the World Rapid, and you have to win a lot of games. You know, if you draw too many games, bad things happen. So I'm happy that I've gone undefeated. I mean, against Wesley, I've had a couple of bad positions. Against Magnus in the first game, probably I was losing at one moment. So even though I haven't lost a game, it hasn't been like super solid. So I'm somewhat pleased with my play, but there's definitely room for improvement.
Mm-hmm. Wow, we're all so excited. Hikaru, it's been a treat to watch you in this tournament so far, and tomorrow is such a big day for all of us and for the chess fans. So I just want to look ahead a little more with that, with you. And just in your own words, what do you think that in this format, what is it that Magnus perhaps does better than you, and what is it that you do better than Magnus?
I mean, Magnus is much better at getting winning positions and converting them. That's a simple answer. I mean, I haven't really had many opportunities. I mean, I don't think I've had any real opportunities to win a game since the first day when I played against Gukesh. So he's very good at converting. I'm very good at defending and hanging on for a long time. I mean, I think that's the biggest difference between us, certainly. Again, you know, as far as the individual match yesterday, I mean, Magnus had some chances. Third game, maybe for like a move or 2, I had some chances, but you know, it came down to Armageddon, and that's how it goes. I mean, could you really say that I was better than Wesley in either of these matches? I don't know if you could even really say that. I mean, I think Wesley was just as good as me. It's just that I got black in the critical game, and he wasn't able to beat me in either of the 2 matches. So I think the edges are very, very small, and I mean, I think we're both great competitors, and hopefully tomorrow will be fun.
Yeah. Are you enjoying this format, Hikaru, with double elimination, match format, Armageddon, bidding, everything going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, to be truthful, I have to like the format because honestly, for the stronger players, double elimination is better. I mean, for someone like Wesley, for example, you know, after he lost to me, if he was done, he's done. But he had a chance to come back, had a chance to win today. So if I'm being truthful, double elimination definitely favors the stronger players because they have to have 2 bad days as opposed to 1 bad day. So you know, in general, it's very good for me. I think for the fans, though, it's also quite exciting because when, you know, if somebody has a bad day, like Gukesh, for example, against me, I mean, he just was completely out of form, lost 2 games, and it's all over right there, basically. But he has a chance to come back. So I think that's helpful. And then also the fact that someone can lose a match and win two matches tomorrow to win the whole thing. I like it. I think it's good overall, and of course it benefits me. So I mean, of course it's good.
Yeah. Hikaru, we appreciate you talking to us, and we wish you best of luck in the grand final tomorrow.
Thank you so much, you guys.
All the best. All the best tomorrow. Hikaru Nakamura against Magnus Carlsen tomorrow. But what a fight it was between Hikaru and Wesley. So today we're also joined by Wesley, playing 2 matches today, now knocked out of the Airthings Masters. How are you, Wesley?
Not very good. It was a very close match.
Yeah, definitely. What happened there in the end in the Armageddon?
Yeah, I think I was just slower. I didn't have good nerves in the end. Like I knew I had very good chances to win, and I thought I was going to. But you know, I just played too timidly, and also like my nerves didn't keep up in the crucial moments. And I was looking at my clock, you know, Hikaru is clearly faster. Also, in the Armageddon, without any increment, even if you get a winning position, you have to be very careful not to flag. So I was keeping an eye on that. And then I didn't work out. And then on move, I was trying to trade queens because I was pretty sure that if the queens were traded, then the end game is pretty straightforward, winning. And I thought when my queen was on d6, you know, it was pretty clinical. But the problem is, even if you get a winning position against Hikaru, he just never gives up, and he keeps defending extremely well. Like, you know, I think anyone else would have lost that position pawn down with the opposite called bishops. But Hikaru just defended extremely well. Then I blundered on move 52.
Yeah.
But I think like when he played bishop b5, I think I should just take the a pawn, b takes a4, then a5. And I was regretting not playing that. Like I'm 2 pawns up, and at least I have a pass a pawn compared to the game. Then slowly try to push my pawns on the king side, but I waited too long. Like I've always wanted to go this f3 g4, try to attack his king, but I just played at the worst possible moment. But with 3 minutes on the clock, it's not, and no increment, it's not so easy for your nerves.
Yeah. We did see some big smiles on your face when the bids came in. What was your reaction to Hikaru going as low as 8 minutes and 5 seconds?
Yeah, that was pretty shocking. Because I think it's insane to go that low. Like we had this bidding wars starting last year for the Global Chess Championship, and back then players were bidding extremely high, like 12 minutes. And against Jeffrey Xiong, I bid 11 minutes, and it's just insane that anyone would go 8. What did he bid? 8 minutes and.
8 minutes and 5, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally insane because if you think about it, normal Armageddon is 5 minutes for white and 4 for black. So then if white has 10 minutes, then it's 8 minutes. Like in Stavanger, I think it's 10 versus 7. And so you think that against 15 minutes, you'd need at least 9 minutes or 9.5, but or even 10 minutes. But it's just totally insane that anyone would go that low. Like I was pretty sure that I would get the black pieces by bidding 8.29. And I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but I wanted to try black for the last game and see how it goes. But I mean, if you bid 8 minutes, then you're clearly gonna win. Like I'm not sure it's a great idea, honestly. But you know, Hikaru was pretty confident to do that. Like 8 minutes is just so little time. Like your opponent can basically try to flag you as long as he gets a game, and as long as you're comparatively equal strength. So that's why I was very happy when I won the extra pawn. And in the opening, I think it's funny, Hikaru just played knight d5. Clearly, I think he mixed up his opening line, like he was just playing quickly. So that's totally insane, of course. But I mean, big congratulations to Hikaru for winning twice against me. And I think today I was playing well. Like I had very good chances to win this match, but my nerves wasn't able to keep up with my play.
Yeah.
And, Wesley, I feel guilty bringing this up now, but we did see a big reaction from Hikaru after game 1 of your match on the final move. Is this something you checked afterwards? Did you realize that there was a win there just on the final move?
Yeah, I didn't realize that the final move was winning, but I was winning before that. So, I was very happy to play d5. Also, on move 32, move 33, he made a blunder with king h7 when he should play queen f4, and black probably holds the door. But when he played king h7, instead of trading rooks, I could just play rook e6, and it's basically completely winning for white. It's like +4. But also on move 36, when he played g5, which was a blunder, like I should just play queen e6, and I was thinking about this move, like queen e6, and if he doesn't trade queens, if he plays queen f8, then there's queen g6, and he loses his kingside pawns because his king is stuck. Meanwhile, if he trades queens with takes, king g7, then the pawn endgame is just winning after f4, or even, I guess, king g2 and f4. So I was spending some time thinking about queen e6, but unfortunately I didn't play that. So I was winning at some point, at certain points, like more than once. So yeah, things would have been much different. So that's a pity.
Yeah, but you've had a huge tournament, Wesley, almost unbeaten. I can see you're sitting inside with a jacket. Is it very cold in Minnesota where you are right now?
Yeah, no, I just well, it's getting warmer. I'm a little bit superstitious that way. I mean, been wearing the same jacket since day 1. Like maybe I should change to a better jacket, but I didn't want to change anything, and I didn't think I'd reach this far in the tournament. So it's nice, and we're leaving tomorrow, so I thought I wouldn't change anything, but.
Lucky jacket. Wesley, it's been super enjoyable to watch you play here in the Airthings Masters, and we're super excited because we definitely will see you in Division 1 also in the next event.
Yeah, I mean, that was my main plan for today, to at least qualify for tomorrow, because it would be nice to beat Hikaru, but at the same time, then I'll play Magnus tomorrow, and maybe he has a better chance than me. And again, big congratulations to Hikaru. So it was a nice defense, and hopefully he feels better regarding his family issues right now.
Well, Wesley, thank you so much for all the entertainment, and we'll see you again in the next event. Thank you also for joining us.
Yeah, I'm very excited to join. Now I'm going to have to prepare for classical tournaments. But thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Wesley. He takes 3rd place, Wesley So, in the Airthings Masters. What a player. Losing only 1 game. It's been incredible for Wesley So as well.
He was in fantastic form. I mean, the way he played the games, he had the advantages on the board against Hikaru Nakamura, but he just couldn't put him away. And he's so humble. He has so much respect for his opponent. He's always trying to be objective. And I just wonder if he lost that objectivity for a second down the stretch of that Armageddon game, maybe he could have flagged Hikaru. He just had to throw away the actual evaluation function and just focus on the clock.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the bracket. We only have 1 day and potentially 2 matches left in the Airthings Masters. Magnus Carlsen, he won the winners final yesterday against Hikaru Nakamura, so it's been a day off today for Magnus Carlsen. He will play in the grand final tomorrow to face now Hikaru Nakamura. Another big match between these two. It's gonna be best out of 4 rapid games with Armageddon tie breaks. If they are tied, if Hikaru Nakamura wins that match, then the grand final will go to a reset, because that means Magnus Carlsen will also have lost a match, and the grand final will be decided with a 2-game match, also again with Armageddon tie breaks if they are tied. What's your expectations for that, David? Will we see Magnus win it in the first match, or will we see Hikaru Nakamura get his revenge?
I'm not sure what to expect, Kaya, but I can't wait. Just the thought of 1 match between them is juicy enough. We already had that a couple of days ago. We're going to get a 2nd match with them. A 3rd match would be a cherry and the icing on the cake. So, yeah, I just want a full-blooded fight in that one, and may the best man win.
Yeah, potentially they're going to play 6 rapid games and 2 Armageddon games tomorrow, Tanya. It's going to be a long day, probably, and that must be exhausting coming up.
Magnus needs to make sure he doesn't have any late nights tonight, Kaya. So that's one thing, and you're absolutely right. Energy is going to be absolutely key, and I think this is a dream final. This is an absolute dream final for us, for chess fans everywhere. The one thing that when I look back at their first match in this event is that perhaps if Hikaru does get the chance with the white pieces, he needs to make the most of it. The strategy of going for an Armageddon might work with everyone under the sun, but might not be the best bet against Magnus Carlsen. If you've got the white pieces, you need to make the most of it.
Definitely. The grand final in Division 1 is coming up tomorrow. The grand final in Division 2 is also coming up tomorrow. But we actually don't know who's going to play in that yet. The only player we know definitely will play there is Fabiano Caruana. He has won the winners final today. But the losers bracket is still going on in Division 2 to decide who will face Caruana tomorrow in the grand final in Division 2. And in Division 3, we already have a winner. The grand final was played today, and young Sam Sevian is the winner of that. He beat Pragnananda in the grand final. What a day. What a day it's been. We have 1 more day in the Airthings Masters. And today as well, we've had a very cool puzzle. Ivanka, it's time to reveal the answer to the puzzle.
Yeah, it was a short and sweet one, but it was cute, I would say. It's from a study from 1964 by Afanasyev. And okay, the whole idea is that, white is in dire straits. Black pawn is going to promote, and there's only one path to salvation and also to victory, and that's just to push the c pawn 1 square forward, trap the king. And, well, people could be asking, well, why does that pawn just not promote? And here comes the killer thing. The knight will jump to the d6 square, and suddenly, like a bolt from the blue, you'll realize that the king is actually trapped. Now, there's one final trick in this position to see, and that is black could play queen takes pawn, but this is actually no good because of knight to b7 check. And suddenly the queen can be taken. The king has to step away, pawn takes queen, and that is it. The knight can step forward and also defend the pawn on e4, and that is it. Beautiful, but simple. And those are the puzzles that I like.
Definitely. Beautiful puzzle. And we did ask you guys to share your answers on social media, and we would actually pick a winner to get a very cool prize today, Ivanka. What is the prize?
It is a 6 months diamond membership of chess.com. And I have to say, this winner has a very cool name.
I'm excited to hear it.
Okay, it's Gobble Squat King. Oh no, this is Joe. Oh, sorry. John Solo. Oh no. Okay, John Solo. Now, he gave the most thorough answer, actually. C3, and there he gives absolutely every single variation.
Fantastic. Wow. Good job, John Solo. You are the winner and will get a very cool prize. We also have a winner in our selfie competition. You guys have been so cool sharing your selfies on Twitter using the hashtag ChessChamps. Caro the Sea Pawn is the winner. What a nice selfie. Oops, I played the bomb cloud again. Might need an Airthings device to improve my chess. Well, you're getting one. An Airthings device signed by Magnus Carlsen is coming for you. And the grand final in the Airthings Masters is coming up tomorrow. It's going to be between the two giants in online chess, Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. Who do you think will win it, Tanya?
Why do I get asked this question first? I am just ready for the match. I can't wait for it. And I think it was a little heartbreaking today for Wesley. You know, he had his chances. He played a brilliant Armageddon. But tomorrow is the big day. We'll have our champion tomorrow. And like I said, Kaya, this is really a dream final. And I'm so excited for it. Hard to pick a favorite. We've seen it in this format. Anything can happen. Bring in the popcorn.
Yeah. David?
I'll say Hikaru, just because it feels like he can hit another level, and I can't wait to see him try tomorrow.
Nice. And Robert?
I think David is just taking that answer because he knows what I was going to say. It has to be Magnus Carlsen. He has 2 lives, so he's the heavy favorite. He would be the favorite even if he just had 1, but with 2 lives, of course, it's Magnus Carlsen.
Ooh, it's going to be a super exciting first grand final in the 2023 Champions Chess Tour. The grand final is coming up tomorrow between those 2 giants. So join us for all the action. We could potentially have 2 Armageddons coming up tomorrow. We'll see you then. Have a good night or day wherever you are in the world. In the meantime, bye.